Ellie saw a blue ring open above the surf, an alien face pressed against the light, watching her blink. More rings formed a square, and the ocean went mute. Ellie worked night patrol along the Texas shoreline. She logged tides, trespassers, and broken buoys. That night the coast felt staged and emptied. Even waves sounded distant like muffled breath. Backup arrived with a camera and spare batteries. They expected smugglers but found a scheduled arrival. Blue light hovered 3 feet above the tide line. It formed a clean circle 6 feet wide with an edge too sharp for mist. It threw no glow onto the water, not even a faint smear. Ellie stepped closer and felt pressure climb behind her ears. The halo slid against the current, leaving no wake, no ripple, no disturbed foam. A second halo appeared 50 yards downshore, then a third, evenly spaced. They held position like survey markers, then snapped into a perfect square with one synchronized blink. Each ring flashed 3 beats, then a long pause, repeating like a coded metronome. The beach wind stopped inside the square, yet Ellie still felt cold moving across her skin. Sand grains froze mid-drift near her boots, then fell straight down like the air had changed density. Her radio popped once with a short burst of clipped static, then fell into dead silence. The backup officer's camera kept recording, yet the live screen showed only empty shoreline and ordinary surf. Ellie looked back up, and the rings were still there, bright as welding arcs, refusing to appear on the feed. She raised her flashlight toward the nearest ring and watched the beam bend sideways, curving as if wrapped around invisible glass. The ring brightened, then sank into deep indigo. Shapes crawled across its surface like living geometry, angles collapsing into new angles. Something stood inside the circle, tall and narrow, too clearly shaped to be glare. It looked like an alien, not a trick of fog. Limbs hung too long, elbows bending in wrong places. Its head tilted, smooth and unreadable, and 2 dark almond eyes held steady on Ellie. A thin mouth line opened, but no sound came out. Ellie felt a cold mind press against her thoughts. Not emotion, just presence and measurement. Images hit her in a burst. Ocean trenches like black wounds, earth from far above, then distant structures suspended over water. Her heartbeat slowed, forced into the ring rhythm. The backup officer spoke, but Ellie could not hear the words. The world dimmed, as if someone lowered every sound and color at once. The ring pulsed once, brighter than the others, and darkness dropped like a curtain. When sight returned, Ellie's clock read 12:17. 90 minutes were missing from her memory, cleanly cut out. The square formation was gone. The backup officer's camera card held nothing but fresh, empty space, as if the night never happened. Ellie did not get a second first encounter. She got aftermath. Before the rings returned, the shoreline infrastructure began failing in a pattern that felt planned. Buoy strobes went dark in sequence from west to east. Tide sensors reported normal numbers, while the waterline climbed anyway. Her radio picked up a low 3-beat thump beneath every channel, like a sonar pulse pressed into static. The backup officer filmed the horizon. Then the camera battery drained from full to 0 in 1 minute. A blue glint appeared offshore. Not a halo this time, but a vertical seam of light rising from the water like a blade. The seam widened and revealed a hard-edged craft hovering inches above the surface, smooth and jointless, reflecting nothing. Under it, the ocean flattened into a perfect circle. Ellie saw aliens on the craft's underside, hanging as if gravity belonged to them, their long limbs folded tight, their eyes fixed on the rig. No ring framed them, no glow softened them. They were simply there, exposed and deliberate. Rig 7 went quiet again, but differently. Lights did not fail first. Sound failed first. The platform's generator vibration continued, yet the noise vanished, like someone removed the air that carries it. Ellie climbed the access stairs and felt her lungs working in a silent world. In the control room, the monitors were on, but no longer showed squares. They showed a rotating wireframe map of the rig, layers peeling back to reveal pipes and tanks like an X-ray. Symbols flowed over the map in tight streams, pausing at valves, joints, and weld seams. The 6 workers stood arranged in a neat line facing the sea, eyes open, hands lowered, breath shallow. An alien stepped onto the deck without climbing, as if it had been placed there between frames. Its skin looked slick and dark, with a faint blue sheen. 3 fingers touched a railing, and frost spread in branching geometry, then stopped at a perfect boundary. Ellie felt a message press into her mind. Not friendly, not hostile, just directive. Keep distance. Keep watching. Keep recording. The backup officer raised the camera and the screen filled with blue noise, but Ellie's eyes stayed clear. The alien turned its head toward her and held eye contact too long. The deck lamps flickered once, then returned. The workers blinked together and came back with empty minutes. Ellie looked down and saw wet footprints on dry steel, each print shaped like a narrow hand. Reports spread along the coast within days. Blue halos appeared near piers, channels, and open water. Each sighting followed a route, never random. The rings always formed squares or hex grids. Aliens were seen inside them, watching quietly. They never chased, yet people felt guided, pulled by the geometry. Ellie began collecting timestamps and distances. She compared tide charts to the pulse rhythm. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats, pause. The rhythm aligned with the ocean more than clocks. Some nights, the rings drifted against the current again, as if rejecting local physics. Water around them stayed unnaturally still, a calm disk inside moving surf. Fish surfaced belly up near the edge, then rolled and swam away unharmed, as if stunned and released. The rings started appearing in larger sets. 4 became 16, 6 became 36. They arranged into lanes offshore, like traffic patterns only they could see. When Ellie drove parallel to those lanes, her headlights seemed to lose brightness inside the glow. Her radio hissed in measured pulses. The backup officer's camera continued failing in the same way, showing normal darkness where Ellie saw indigo light. Ellie began to understand the rings were not just light. They were a filter, deciding what could be recorded. On October 15th, the sea began glowing everywhere. The glow spread across miles of water like ink in reverse, rising instead of sinking. A dome lifted from the surface, a mile high, formed without splash and without falling drops. Inside the dome, thousands of halos hovered in rows. Aliens stood within them like sentries, repeating posture, repeating distance, repeating the same 3-finger sign. The dome's inner surface looked like a curved screen, showing shifting geometric maps that mirrored the coastline. A message entered minds along the shore. It felt shared, not spoken, and it arrived with images instead of sentences. Earth from above, lit lines of cities, deep ocean trenches, then unfamiliar habitats built into water and air. The message carried a choice: join a wider order or remain isolated. Some people collapsed crying without knowing why. Some people walked toward the water and stopped at the tide line as if held there by invisible rules. When the dome fell, it left blue crystals scattered on beaches. Each crystal hummed faintly near human skin. Ellie touched one and felt her thoughts sharpen. She began hearing patterns inside radio noise. She began recognizing the 3-beat rhythm in ordinary sounds. The backup officer touched one and began drawing grids compulsively, as if compelled to map the rings. Both of them dreamed of the dome every night, always waking at the same minute. After that, Ellie's patrol notes became fragmented and obsessive. The backup officer vanished from all records, as if never employed. Blue halos still appear when the tide turns wrong. If aliens offer a choice, who decides the price? Comment your theory, like, and subscribe for more Shoreline Files. Welcome to the Void. Tonight, we're not just discussing a single witness sighting. We are diving into a case so rich in corroboration, so bizarre in its details, that it remains a cornerstone of ufology nearly 5 decades later. His name was Filiberto Cardenas, a Cuban immigrant living in Miami, Florida, in 1979. What happened to him on that quiet January night didn't just change his life. It revealed a terrifying, methodical depth to the alien presence on Earth. This is not a typical lights in the sky story. This case has multiple independent eyewitnesses confirming the initial event. It involves an object left behind as physical evidence. Repeated hypnotic regression sessions across different specialists validated it. But most terrifyingly, Filiberto returned with 108 unexplained marks etched onto his body, and a vivid, consistent memory of a being on a golden throne who spoke to him in perfect Spanish from a hidden subterranean base. Forget the cliches. This is the Cardenas abduction, and here's what the investigators uncovered. The date was late January 1979. Filiberto Cardenas was driving with 3 friends in a remote, quiet area outside Miami. They were engaged in a typical evening, unaware they were about to become unwilling participants in one of history's most documented close encounters of the fourth kind. Suddenly, the vehicle died, not gradually but instantly. This classic electromagnetic effect, EM effect, is often reported in UFO encounters, indicating a sophisticated technological presence overwhelming terrestrial electronics. As the car stalled, a massive, silent, disc-shaped craft descended slowly nearby, casting an eerie, focused glow on the surrounding area. According to the witnesses, Cardenas was immediately struck by a powerful, invisible energy. He was rendered instantly paralyzed, unable to move, speak, or resist. He was then, against all physics, levitated, slowly and silently lifted into the belly of the immense ship. His three friends, witnessing this impossible, terrifying scene, fled the location in sheer terror, becoming the first crucial piece of external corroboration. Crucially, this event didn't happen in isolation. Reports later surfaced suggesting that air traffic control personnel at a nearby airport also observed an unidentified flying object exhibiting unusual speed and maneuvers in the vicinity at the exact time of the abduction. This multiple source confirmation, linking ground witnesses to military or official observation, elevated the Cardenas case from a single sensational claim to a documented investigation. Inside the craft, the terrifying medical procedure began. Filiberto found himself in a large, sterile room, surrounded by the classic gray entities. He described them as short, approximately 4 feet tall, with large black eyes and smooth grayish skin. These grays subjected him to a full, invasive physical examination, utilizing strange small tools and focused lights. The examination was harrowing, but the most compelling and unique proof he carried back was physical. 108 small, perfectly circular marks etched across various parts of his body. These were not scars from old injuries. They were fresh, consistent, and meticulously placed. Investigators later photographed and documented these marks. What were they? Puncture wounds? Microburns from advanced sensor devices? Regardless, the precise number 108 strongly suggests a methodical, deliberate process, a scientific tally or diagnostic procedure. Cardenas returned with a physical receipt, a quantified injury that dramatically separates his story from typical abduction narratives. The medical examination was merely the prerequisite. The core purpose of the abduction was far grander, and it took place not on the ship, but in a different, hidden location. Cardenas later recalled being transported to a massive underground or undersea base, a structure described as a huge, technological cavern, giving the impression of a vast, naturally occurring underground chamber. Here he encountered an entity unlike the short, silent grays. This was the chief, the commanding presence. This being was tall, standing between 6 and 7 feet, majestic and uniquely intimidating. He wore a long, flowing dark yellow or gold cape and sat upon a large, ornate throne. He was the master. This detail of a high-ranking human-like figure is relatively rare and highly significant, suggesting a hierarchical structure within the alien operation. But the biggest shock came when the entity began to speak. He communicated not just telepathically, but verbally, in perfect, flowing Spanish. This suggested an ancient intimacy with human culture and language, implying they had been observing and operating on Earth for a very long time. The chief delivered a solemn and direct warning. Humanity was on a path to self-destruction. Through pollution, continuous warfare, and the proliferation of nuclear weapons, Earth was jeopardizing its own future. He stated that the alien program was a genetic preservation effort. They were methodically collecting and studying samples to ensure the survival of the human species, should we ultimately fail to save ourselves. This aligns the Cardenas case with the controversial but well-documented theory of a widespread hybridization or genetic monitoring program. Before Cardenas was returned, the chief bestowed upon him a gift and a concrete piece of evidence. A small metallic ring inscribed with alien symbols, a script unknown to any human language. This object became the third piece of physical evidence, alongside the 108 marks. While laboratory tests on the ring's material and potential radioactivity were inconclusive in proving its extraterrestrial origin, the foreign symbols cemented the reality of the encounter for Cardenas and his supporters. The story did not end with Filiberto's return. Weeks later, he received a powerful telepathic message. They wanted him back, but this time, he was instructed to bring his wife, Margarita Cardenas. The second abduction involving Margarita provided the final, crucial element of corroboration. The investigation was primarily conducted by respected ufologist Virgilio Sanchez Osejo. Understanding the limitations of conscious memory, both Filiberto and Margarita underwent multiple sessions of hypnotic regression with different specialists. The results were astonishing. Under deep hypnosis, both Filiberto and Margarita recounted their experiences, the paralysis, the graze, the chief, the subterranean base, with unwavering consistency across all sessions. Skeptics often dismiss regression therapy, but in the Cardenas case, the level of complex, consistent detail, especially regarding the specific count of the 108 marks and the chief's unique appearance and command of Spanish, makes pure fabrication highly improbable. This convinced many professional researchers that they were dealing with genuine, though suppressed, memories of a traumatic shared experience. The Filiberto Cardenas case remains a highly detailed and heavily corroborated file. It is solidified by a convergence of evidence: multiple eyewitness accounts at the scene and the airport, physical marks, the 108 count on Cardenas's body, the unusual metallic ring, and the consistent hypnotic testimonies of two family members. This case leaves us with profound questions. Were the 108 marks a biological diagnostic receipt? Was the entity on the throne truly a powerful figure in an alien genetic preservation program? And what does it mean that an advanced being, operating from a hidden base, was fluent in our languages? The Cardenas family sacrificed their privacy and endured scrutiny to share this terrifying truth. Their legacy is a reminder that the phenomenon of alien abduction is not just about lights in the sky. It's about a methodical, intelligent, and ongoing interaction with humanity. Do you believe the 108 marks were definitive proof of a foreign diagnostic device? Or do you think the consistency of the stories was simply a case of shared psychological trauma? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. A blue UFO hovered low, and aliens marched along the cliff. Lena heard her name spoken from a dead radio. Then the valley went silent, like it was holding breath. Lena Hardwell shot wildlife for 15 years, usually alone. A collar map showed wolves deep inside Absaroka wilderness. She rode in with 2 pack horses and sealed camera cases. At dusk, wolf howls turned into a metallic hum. A blue UFO rose, and the wolves answered with silence. Lena reached the meadow at dusk, fog threading pines like smoke. Wolves circled the grass in silence. 2 collared wolves watched her camp from brush. Their collars blinked once, then died. The horses refused the eastern tree line and sidestepped together. A low hum rose from the ridge and deepened. The pack kept perfect spacing, as if trained. One wolf lifted a paw and froze mid-step. Another lowered its head and stared uphill. Lena raised her camera and heard nothing click. Her breath fog thinned, then vanished. The creek gurgle faded, then returned muted. The meadow felt staged, like a rebuilt scene. A blue metallic UFO lifted beyond the ridge and hovered low. It held steady, ignoring wind and gravity. Small white spheres split away and formed an overhead grid. The grid rotated slowly and stayed perfectly centered. It tightened into a clean hex pattern above camp. 3 tall aliens marched along the cliff edge in file. Their limbs moved smooth, with no wasted motion. Their heads turned together, tracking Lena's smallest shift. A white pulse flooded the valley and washed the fog blue. Every device died instantly: camera, GPS, and recorder. Her headlamp stayed on, but the beam bent sideways. It skimmed the snow like water around invisible glass. No shadow formed beneath the spheres or the UFO. The hum matched Lena's heartbeat, then changed its rhythm. The radio clicked on by itself and spoke Lena once. The voice sounded calm, dry, and too close. A sphere drifted near her tent and stopped. It floated at shoulder height and did not wobble. The aliens lifted their long hands toward the wolves. The collared wolf collapsed, trembling, muzzle pressed into ash. The other wolves froze, awaiting permission to move. One alien pointed at the collars, then at Lena. Another alien raised 3 fingers and held them still. The overhead grid pulsed 3 times in perfect sync. Lena tasted metal and smelled ozone in cold air. The UFO shifted 1 meter without any arc. It then returned to its exact prior position. The wolves backed away, still silent, never breaking formation. Lena stood frozen, watched from sky and cliff. The hum faded, but the wolves did not leave. They paced a silent ring around Lena's tent. Their eyes stayed locked on the cliff line. The collared wolf still lay in ash, trembling. The blue UFO held steady beyond the ridge. The overhead grid dimmed, then pulsed once. 3 aliens remained on the rock shelf above. They stood upright, perfectly still, like sentries. A low sphere drifted nearer, then stopped midair. It cast no shadow on snow or grass. One alien lifted a long hand slowly. Every wolf froze in the same instant. Lena heard a click from a dead collar. The collared wolf's tag light blinked without power. Another wolf stepped forward and dropped torn strap fiber. The metal clasp was warm and smelled of ozone. The wolves did not snarl or bare teeth. They watched Lena as if weighing her breath. The aliens turned their heads together, tracking her hands. The grid loosened, then tightened into a neat hex. The hum returned briefly, then cut off. The spheres blinked out in a clean sequence. The aliens stepped backward into fog and vanished. The wolves stayed, holding the ring until dawn. At first light, the pack moved uphill in silence. Lena followed at a careful distance behind them. The wolves kept equal spacing, like a practice drill. They stopped at a dark circle in frosted soil. The circle edge looked cut with a blade. Warmth rose from ash fine as flour. A second circle weighted higher, identical and precise. A third circle sat near bare rock. The wolves refused to step inside the circles. The collared wolf approached, then backed away quickly. 3 aliens appeared on the ledge above, watching. A low sphere drifted down over the nearest circle. The wolves crouched, ears flat, eyes unblinking. The sphere pulsed once, and the ash shifted inward. Symbols flashed inside the columned glow, then wiped clean. One alien pointed at the collars, then at Lena. The collared wolf's tag blinked again, then went dark. Lena raised her lens and got one clear frame. The frame showed aliens facing the wolves, not her. The wolves turned as one and looked away. When Lena looked up again, the ledge was empty. Wolf tracks led straight, then vanished on bare stone. In December, Lena returned alone with upgraded sensors. She carried meters, filters, and a spectrum recorder. Snow erased her trail and softened every ridgeline. The meadow looked staged, like a rebuilt set. The horses refused water and stopped breathing loudly. Wolf tracks circled camp again, then ended cleanly. A collared wolf watched from trees, collar light dead. Another wolf stood behind it, perfectly still. No owls called, and no wind moved grass. The hum returned before any light appeared. It vibrated her chest and loosened her teeth. A blue metallic UFO rose behind the eastern ridge. It climbed without sound or rotor wash. White spheres split off and formed a rigid grid overhead. The grid rotated slowly and stayed perfectly centered. Aliens stood along both slopes, evenly spaced, perfectly silent. Their long fingers flexed, like counting invisible beats. The wolves stayed downwind, watching without a single sound. The collared wolf lowered its head and stopped blinking. Columns of light struck the ground in ordered rows. Each column held steady, then jumped to the next point. Snow did not melt, it folded inward into dark ash. Dark circles formed, clean-edged, identical, and warm. A circle appeared under every light column. The horses shuddered, yet their hooves never shifted. A collared wolf ran in, then stopped mid-stride. Its breath fog froze in place, then vanished. Lena's watch flickered, then lost a full minute. Her compass pointed down, then snapped to north again. Lena raised her camera and captured one clear frame. The frame showed 4 aliens beside the nearest light column. Their bodies looked too thin for their height. Their heads turned with no visible neck strain. A sphere drifted near her tent without casting any shadow. Her screen flickered between 2 times, then went black. A fractal ice pattern crawled across her lens. The ice vanished, leaving the glass perfectly dry. The wolves began circling, keeping equal spacing from Lena. One wolf stepped into ash and did not flinch. A dead radio clicked on by itself. It spoke in a dry mechanical voice, calm and precise. Observation noted. Continue observation. The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. The radio then spoke Lena once, without emotion. Aliens turned together, facing her camp in sync. The hum answered, rising in a slow breathing rhythm. Warmth spread through Lena's palm and wrist. Images flashed of hex cells under snow and stone. She saw wolves moving like pieces on a board. She felt watched from inside the ground. The blue UFO moved closer and paused above the dry creek. The overhead grid tightened into a clean hex pattern. Symbols pulsed inside the columns, then wiped clean again. One alien walked forward, closing distance without visible effort. It stopped near the circle edge and lifted one hand. The collared wolf dropped, trembling, muzzle pressed into ash. The other wolves froze, as if awaiting permission. The spheres blinked once, and the valley went dark. Lena packed fast, hands shaking, breath thin and sharp. Behind her, the hum matched her heartbeat, then changed. After that night, Lena identified 31 related survey sites. They spanned 4 states and followed the same hex grid. Every site produced the same radio message and electronic failures. The pattern kept expanding with patient and deliberate precision. Why would aliens want humans to keep watching their work? Are they mapping wolves, water, or the observers themselves? Share your theory below, then like and subscribe for more cases. The call came in like any other. Loose cattle on Highway 16. A routine hazard in Texas hill country, the kind of thing that ends with reflective cones and irritated ranch hands. But Nina Caldwell arrived to a pasture that looked staged. 63 head of cattle stood in a ruler straight line, perfectly still, all facing the same patch of sky. No chewing, no swishing tails, no restless hooves, just a synchronized stillness that felt less like fear and more like instruction. And then her phone clock slid backward, minute by minute, as if time itself had been told to wait. Nina had been a Texas state trooper for 7 years. She trusted patterns, tire marks, heat shimmer, human lies. She knew what panic looked like and what fraud sounded like. That night, outside Medina and Bandera, she felt something worse than panic. She felt a system operating with calm confidence, using the land, the animals, and the air above them like components. Hill country was supposed to be open space and honest darkness. Instead, it became a sealed room. Bo Harrington met her near the fence line, older hands shaking with a kind of dread that didn't ask for comfort. The cattle were not scattered across the road like the dispatch said. They were gathered, arranged, aligned, as if the pasture had turned into a runway. Nina stepped into the grass, and the world grew quieter in a way she couldn't explain. Not the normal quiet of rural Texas, but an engineered quiet. Insects still existed, the breeze should have existed, yet everything that made the night feel alive was suddenly muted, as if someone had lowered the volume on nature. A faint light pulsed on the roof of the cattle barn. It was dim, almost shy, but it had a rhythm. A slow heartbeat of illumination that made the barn look temporarily unreal. The strangest part wasn't the glow, it was the shadows. Fence posts, railing, even the cattle themselves cast shadows that leaned toward the light, not away from it. The pasture's logic had flipped. Nina caught herself staring at the ground, trying to force physics to behave. When she checked her phone again, it insisted the evening was still in the 7 o'clock hour. Her patrol car's dashboard clock agreed. Her wristwatch did not. Her sense of time did not. The sky looked like after 9. The deep kind of dark that arrives when the day is fully gone. Yet the devices around her kept rewinding, as if something overhead wanted the night to last longer. The clouds began to move with purpose. They didn't drift. They rotated, tightening into a perfect circle, a clean geometry that didn't belong to weather. The ring widened and stabilized, and at the center of it hung a shape so dark it seemed to drink starlight. Not a silhouette, not a shadow, a mass. Nina felt her throat close as the air temperature dropped fast, too fast, the kind of sudden chill that doesn't come from wind. Heat fled the yard in a single breath. Her skin tightened, her fingertips went numb. On the barn roof, figures appeared, tall, thin, wrong in their proportions. They didn't move like people crossing a surface. They repositioned with minimal motion, like frames missing between moments. Their bodies were long and spare, with angles that hinted at joints but refused to confirm them. Nina couldn't settle her eyes on faces. She could only register the fact of attention. The cattle did not run. They remained lined up like witnesses. The pulsing roof light brightened and the shadows bent harder toward it, as if gravity had begun taking instructions from illumination. Nina reached for procedure, for radio calls and backup requests, for anything that would turn this into an incident with a normal ending. But the air had a different plan. The sound around her thinned. The usual world felt farther away. like she was standing inside a bubble that didn't share rules with the road behind her. Then her mind slipped, not into sleep, not into unconsciousness, into somewhere adjacent, a sideways fall into a different awareness. Nina's awareness didn't fade like sleep. It slid sideways, as if the ranch and the night were still there, only separated by a thin pane of glass. One moment she was in hill country air that smelled of dust and cattle. The next, she stood under a purple-gray sky that felt too low, lit by light that came from everywhere at once and made shadows feel unnecessary. The ground held her weight without texture. In the distance, structures rose that didn't look built so much as grown, ribbed arcs and layered shells that pulsed faintly like a system breathing. No doors, no windows, no obvious machines. Yet the place felt like a controlled environment, a sterile field designed to test one thing. Her. A pressure gathered behind her eyes. Not pain at first, but a firm hand on the back of her thoughts, turning her attention where it wanted. Memories surfaced in clean sequence, pulled forward as if selected from labeled drawers. Her first day in uniform, crash scenes, night radios, the habit of scanning for danger even when nothing was happening. It didn't feel like interrogation, it felt like measurement. The presence was immense, not in size, but in certainty. Meaning arrived without words, packed tight and unfolding inside her mind. It wasn't cruel, it wasn't kind. It simply observed with a calm so complete it made human fear feel loud. Then she understood what was happening at the ranch. They weren't interested in cattle as livestock. They were interested in what cattle did to people. The protective instinct, the way a rancher guarded his herd, the way a trooper stepped between harm and someone else. That was the signal they were studying, the human reflex to shield. And Bo Harrington was the target. A fixed period, 47 days. Not a threat in the human sense, more like a clinical decision. Nina sensed that the bargaining itself was part of the process, to see who would offer themselves, to see what humans did when the danger wasn't a gun or a storm, but an intelligence that could rewrite the rules of the room. So she pushed her intent forward like a badge in the dark and offered a trade. Not pleading, structure. She presented herself as a better variable, trained observation, stress discipline, a mind conditioned to record detail. If they wanted to study protection and empathy, she could give them a cleaner sample than Bo, and she could survive the process long enough to remember it. The presence evaluated her with frightening neutrality. The pressure behind her eyes intensified, and the world seemed to pause on the edge of an answer. Agreement arrived without warmth. It felt like a latch releasing. The purple-gray sky deepened. The grown structures seemed to lean toward her awareness. She felt herself being opened, not harmed, but unfolded. Layers of memory and identity briefly exposed, scanned, and stacked back into place. For an instant, she saw a wider grid beyond this space. Moving lights in the dark, corridors of brightness connecting points like routes on a map that wasn't meant for humans. Then it snapped shut. Nina sensed the ranch again like a distant sound through walls. She understood she had only a second to leave proof in the human world, a single thread that might survive what came next. Her last act of control was practical, not heroic, forcing a message out to her department before the connection collapsed. And then the barn, the cattle, the rotating clouds, all of it fell away. Not destroyed, simply removed, as if a square of the world had been folded inward. The study began. Nina came back on Christmas morning, alone in wet grass with no tracks, like the night had been removed and put back wrong. Her body was fine, but time didn't feel straight anymore. Some moments arrived like memories from the future. She kept the job because routine was the only thing that still felt real. Officially, nothing happened. When she tried to write it down, the details slipped, turning soft and ordinary, like the truth didn't want a record. Now, on empty stretches of Highway 16, she doesn't scan for headlights. She watches the sky for seams. The scariest part wasn't what they showed her. It was how calm she felt agreeing to it. What if the bargain never ended? It just moved inside her. If your shadow ever pointed the wrong way, would you keep driving or stop and look up? Drop your theory in the comments. Subscribe for more missing time and repeating patterns. This isn't fiction, it's a warning. What kind of light can hang inside heavy fog without diffusing? bend a spotlight beam like glass, and erase 12 minutes from a boat's GPS as if the water itself can edit time. And if a perfect white sphere is not illuminated but rendered, who is it meant to see when it appears over Puget Sound before sunrise? Logan Pierce had worked the Everett Harbor docks for 12 years, running a small fishing boat and trusting what could be checked, logged, and fixed. Engines, tide charts, weather windows, and hard numbers that did not care about belief. On November 8th last year, a canceled salmon charter left his boat fueled and ready, and Dylan Mercer, a calm marina maintenance worker with long sea experience, talked him into a quick run to check crab pots near Jetty Island. They cast off at 5:47 a.m. into thick fog and cold air, and Logan logged the time as always, but within minutes the sound felt staged. Because the harbor sounds vanished, birds were absent, and even the fog seemed too uniform, like a curtain pulled across the water for privacy. And before either man saw any light at all, Logan had the unwanted certainty that something out there had already noticed them and was waiting for them to enter the right piece of water. For the first 10 minutes, Logan navigated by memory and lights, listening to the steady pulse of his engine. Then the fog thinned in uneven sheets and the silence tightened, and Dylan touched Logan's shoulder and pointed ahead. At first, Logan assumed it was a headlight from another boat, but the light did not sway and did not jitter with water. It held position like a marker pinned into the air. A bright white point hovered in the fog about 200 yards ahead and roughly 20 feet above the surface. And when Logan raised binoculars, the shape resolved into a perfect white sphere with edges too sharp to belong in mist. The fog did not scatter its glow. There was no halo, no fall-off, just a clean circle that looked rendered rather than illuminated. And as Logan stared, he noticed the sphere was not merely bright, it was exact, as if it had been drawn by a system that preferred precision over nature. Then Logan saw the first alien cue that was not light at all, a faint geometric shimmer in the fog around the sphere, barely visible, like a grid line catching on moisture, and it moved in slow pulses that did not match wind or waves. Dylan said the air felt thick, and Logan realized the sphere was not an object floating in fog. It was an interface, and the fog was being used as a screen. When they closed to about 100 yards, Logan cut the engine and let the boat drift, and the depth finder read 80 feet with nothing between hull and bottom. No structure, no shadow, just open water under a thing that should not have been able to hold still in moving air. Logan raised a high-power handheld spotlight and fired the beam straight at the sphere, expecting glare, but the beam curved cleanly and wrapped around it as if space had turned to glass. And in the same instant, the fog around the sphere showed faint angular seams that pulsed once like a heartbeat, and Dylan whispered that his ears hurt even though there was still no sound. The sphere slid north with no wake and then snapped into a perfect 90-degree turn toward deeper water, and pressure slammed into Logan's chest like a silent bass hit while his teeth began to ache, and the console erupted into chaos, compass spinning, depth numbers jumping, GPS flipping between Everett and Canada as if the boat had been briefly relocated and returned. As the fog thinned, the sphere brightened like a signal marker and revealed what it had been hiding. A dark gray craft the size of a bus, but flatter, disc-like, seamless, with no windows and no joints, rotating toward them while faint scanning lines rippled across its underside, and the boat's lights dipped as if something was drawing power through the air. A wave of heat rolled through the cabin and into their bones. The air tasted metallic, and then the craft tilted to about 45 degrees and launched straight up into the cloud layer, faster than Logan's eyes could hold, and the pressure vanished instantly. The electronics snapped back to normal, and the sound resumed its ordinary noises as if nothing had happened. They turned back toward the marina in silence because neither of them had language that fit what they had watched. And when Logan checked the clock, it read 6:14 a.m., only 27 minutes since departure, yet his body felt stretched as if hours had passed, and both men had red skin on their faces and forearms, like a severe sunburn, despite fog before sunrise. Logan searched for similar reports and found dozens from fishermen, pilots, and hikers reaching back years, all repeating the same elements with an accuracy that felt engineered. a flawless sphere that does not diffuse in mist, electronics failing in synchronized bursts, the air going unnaturally quiet, and time missing in clean blocks, and the repetition tightened into a single idea. This was a corridor with rules, not a random sighting. That afternoon, Logan noticed a perfect circle on his left wrist the size of a coin, pale and sharply defined as if drawn with a compass. And Dylan reported a matching circle on his neck under the jawline. And by morning, Dylan had 3 new circles on his forearm, forming a perfect equilateral triangle, while Logan found new circles on his shoulder and collarbone with the same spacing. And when Logan tried to photograph them, the phone overexposed the marks into a bright white ring for a single frame, then returned to normal as if the pattern flared only for the sensor. They began documenting everything: clinic photos, timestamped notes, instrument readings from the boat. But the more they recorded, the more the environment responded, because that night Logan felt the same pressure in his chest again with no sound attached. His boat compass swung several degrees on its own while the engine was off, and a faint white point appeared deep in the fog beyond the breakwater, steady and motionless, then split into 2 identical points for the length of 1 breath before merging and winking out. Dylan called a few minutes later, shaken, and said he had just heard Logan's voice on his phone telling him to meet at Jetty Island at first light, but Logan had not called. And when Dylan tried to replay the voicemail, the file existed yet contained only silence. And on Logan's navigation app, a new recent track appeared, a thin straight line from the marina to the jetty corridor, at a time his boat had never left the slip, followed by a clean blank span, matching the missing 12 minutes exactly, as if the corridor had learned how to write invitations in his own data. By the 3rd night, the circles looked slightly brighter under dock lights, and at 5:47 a.m., Logan's logbook was open to a fresh page on the galley table, with the departure time written in his own handwriting, even though he had not picked up a pen. And when he went to find Dylan, the berth was empty and Dylan's truck was gone, but the gate camera showed nothing except a brief wash of white across the pavement and a single frame where the air looked gridded. And after that, Dylan stopped answering entirely, leaving Logan with a fate already partially unfolding, because the corridor was no longer waiting offshore. It was reaching into schedules, records, and people. In early December, Logan returned to the Jetty Island waterline alone, and the sound went quiet the moment he crossed the invisible boundary, and the depth finder showed a large object hovering at 60 feet where the bottom should have been 90. So he lowered a GoPro and saw curved brushed metal with no seams before the cable locked hard as if held. Then the feed collapsed into perfect black for the final 30 seconds, and his GPS flickered into another clean blank span. On the way back, a flawless white point hovered just above the water off his bow, and his spotlight beam curved around it exactly as before. And when Logan reached for the radio to call Dylan, the display showed Dylan already connected, yet only a thin layered cadence came through, steady and close, like counting. If the corridor can edit logs, voices, and departures, what exactly is left of choice? Comment your theory, then hit like and subscribe for the next case. The blast did not sound like an explosion. It looked like one. A vertical spear of electric blue punched upward from Tango 7 and turned the snowfield into daylight for a single breath. Calvin Rhodes was already running, Brooke Anders close behind, boots biting into hard drifts as the air burned cold in their lungs. When the light collapsed, the station was gone. Not broken, not burning, not scattered into debris. The antenna mast, the wind wall, the weather dome, the fuel drums, the whole footprint of human shelter simply did not exist anymore. There was only perfectly smooth snow, unmarked and untouched, as if Tango 7 had never been built. The horizon returned to darkness, and something tall remained out there watching, too many silhouettes to count before the night swallowed them again. Calvin had worked Arctic rotations long enough to believe he understood isolation. 6 years at northern research posts teaches you what darkness does to time and nerves. 3 weeks into the deep winter shift, He and Brooke were the only two people at Tango 7, 70 miles north of the Arctic Circle, surrounded by permanent night and temperatures that hovered around -38. He had heard older crews talk about strange lights and missing hours, the kind of stories that never survived paperwork. It was not that he had never considered the possibility. It was that he refused to believe it could be real until it reached down and shut the world off around him. Midwinter at Tango 7 meant permanent night and air cold enough to sting the lungs on every breath. Calvin Rhodes was checking the magnetometer along the eastern instrument belt when the horizon changed shape. A thin, pale yellow band appeared perfectly horizontal across the east, too straight to be aurora, too steady to be weather. It did not ripple, it did not drift. It held like a line drawn with a blade. Then a second detail surfaced above it, a dark craft shape hanging in the sky, wide and silent, with no blinking markers and no engine noise. Its underside looked smooth and featureless, except for 3 faint points of light spaced with geometric intent, dim enough to feel deliberate. The station radio died into absolute silence. Not static, not fade, just nothing, as if every frequency had been shut off at the source. Inside the station, digital displays began to blink and drop, batteries collapsing from full to empty in minutes. Outside devices refused to stay on long enough to record a frame. On a perimeter camera feed, the snowfield near the north berm briefly showed a tall figure standing upright, far too slender to be a bear, too still to be a person in wind. It was roughly 20 feet from the fence line, and it pulsed in sync with the yellow band, like the light was controlling both the sky and what stood beneath it. The feed darkened and vanished. When the systems returned hours later, the band and the craft were gone, leaving only the normal Arctic horizon. But Calvin could not shake the memory of that silent object above the line, and the impossible certainty that something had been close enough to look back before the station went blind. They did not report the light or the vertical shape. Without footage, it would become a story, and stories in a government chain become assessments, evaluations, and quiet removals. They wrote only what could be described as technical anomalies and tried to return to routine, but the station felt altered, as if the walls had become thin. During a final perimeter check, Calvin saw the snow outside the wind wall and froze. The ground held prints that were not prints. Perfect circles were pressed into the snow, each nearly 4 feet wide. They were spaced apart with no trail between them, no scuff marks, no stride marks, nothing to explain travel. The circles formed a pattern that began north of the station and curved around it in a tightening spiral. Inside each circle, the snow looked polished, smooth, not compressed, not melted, as if the surface had been finished rather than stepped on. A thermal scan showed the circles were warm, not slightly warm, warm enough to stand out like fresh metal in cold air, around 40 degrees, more than 60 degrees above ambient. There was no residual radiation and no heat source below, just warmth held in perfect geometry, a signature left behind. 3 nights later, the phenomenon returned, different but more aggressive. A deep electric blue band appeared not on the horizon but higher in the sky, angled 30 degrees, stretching north to south. It began descending. The station power failed completely. Emergency systems stayed dark. Inside, temperature climbed rapidly, heat bleeding in as if something outside was radiating into the building. Through a window, Calvin saw the blue band hovering 10 feet above the snow, tall and narrow, impossibly thin yet brighter than any flare. From that light, a tall blurred form began to emerge, not walking in, but pressing through as if the air had turned into a membrane. They fled west into open snow. Behind them, Tango 7 erupted into a column of blue light that punched upward and lit the world so hard it threw sharp shadows across the tundra. In that glare, the snowfield was crowded with motionless figures, dozens, then hundreds, tall shapes spaced out as if arranged, all facing the same direction. Then the light cut off. Where the station had stood, there was nothing. No wreckage, no crater, no scattered panels, only untouched snow, smooth as a blank page. 6 months later, Calvin and Brooke returned north, 50 miles from where Tango 7 had been erased. The tundra greeted them with geometry. Circular impressions, nearly 4 feet wide, sat in ordered patterns instead of trails. Every circle held warmth through gloves, heat sealed into the snow without meltwater. From higher ground, the layout resembled a coastline map stamped into the ice. At 3:47 a.m., all electronics died at once. Cameras went black. Satellites dropped. Screens blanked. The air thickened, and a slow vibration rose through the ground, deep and rhythmic, like a massive engine idling beneath the world. Frost crept higher along fabric seams, not from wind, but from cold that felt switched on around them. Then the gold band appeared, perfectly horizontal, suspended over the tundra like a ruler line drawn across reality. Above it, a UFO resolved out of darkness, massive and silent, swallowing starlight. Its underside was smooth and curved, with recessed points of faint light arranged in precise geometry, matching the warm circles below. A thin vertical beam dropped from the craft to the band and down to the ground, clean and pale, outlining a corridor rather than lighting it. Inside the beam, the darkness looked dense, almost glassy. Snow beneath it did not stir. Along that beam, alien figures emerged, tall and narrow, long-limbed, their edges wavering as if they were not fully solid. They did not crunch through snow and left no footprints. They appeared in positions as if placed, facing Calvin's line of sight, spaced with measured intent. Some turned their heads in smooth arcs without shifting their bodies. Their surfaces were matte and dark, with faint pulses moving beneath them like light under skin, matching the vibration in the ground. The UFO lowered slightly. The beam brightened once. The warmth inside the circles intensified, and the snow within each ring looked subtly polished, as if its surface had been restructured. One figure occupied a nearer position, close enough for shallow facial contours to be visible, eyes that did not shine yet held attention like a sensor. Meaning pressed into Calvin's mind without sound, a demand shaped like a question, followed by an answer delivered as images. Tango 7 had not been destroyed. It had been removed, pulled out of a place it did not belong, a human structure interfering with layers of reality it was never meant to occupy. Calvin stopped thinking of the Arctic as empty. He began thinking of it as occupied. The lights were not a mystery flare in the distance. The prints were not a prank. The station was not destroyed. It was erased. If you ever work under permanent night and you see a perfectly horizontal band that does not ripple, or you find warm circles pressed into snow with no trail between them, do not assume you are alone. Assume you are standing near the spaces between, and that something tall is already facing your direction, waiting to see if you look back. Night in the Rockies. The cab is the only warm box of light for miles. Jackson grips the wheel as the road ahead looks edited, like someone erased the depth from the world and left only a flat strip of asphalt in its place. The beams from his truck still blaze, yet they stop short in midair, as if the darkness has weight. Then a pressure settles over the roof, not wind, not weather, something vast and deliberate. The engine sound thins into a hollow hum, every gauge steady but meaningless, and the air inside the cab turns metallic and sharp. Jackson lifts his eyes to the windshield and realizes he is not approaching the anomaly. It is approaching him. October 2019, Colorado. The stretch from Grand Junction toward Gunnison is the kind of road that feels empty even when you are not alone. Just black mountains, cold air, and the hum of a diesel engine trying to keep you anchored to reality. Jackson had 15 years behind the wheel. He knew the difference between fear and imagination. That night, the road taught him a third thing. The line ran parallel to the highway, bright but sourceless, not blinking like aircraft lights, not shimmering like reflection, just a clean glowing stroke suspended in open air. Jackson slowed. Mary leaned forward, trying to make sense of it, trying to film it. The phone struggled to lock focus, hunting the darkness, refusing the line like it did not want to be recorded. Then the headlights failed in the strangest way. The bulbs still burned. The dashboard still glowed, but the beam would not reach the road. It stacked up in front of the grill, flat and useless, as if the night had turned solid. The truck shuddered and died. A hard cut of silence. No wind through mirrors. No engine vibration. Just their breathing. Seconds later, everything returned at once. Engine, radio, normal light. Jackson drove on, trying to laugh it off. 10 minutes later, Mary checked the GPS. Same coordinates, same mile marker, same distance to Gunnison, still locked at 38 to 40 miles like the road had reset. They passed signs they had already passed. They saw a reflector that felt familiar, then impossible. Jackson kept driving anyway, because stopping made it feel worse. The line returned. This time it did not float beside the road. It stretched across the highway ahead, widening into a pale tear in the dark. The air around it looked wrong, like heat shimmer without heat. Jackson did the only thing his instincts could agree on. He put his foot down and drove straight through. The moment the truck crossed the seam, the pressure in their ears released. The GPS jumped forward. The next sign finally changed. The road began behaving like a road again. 3 months later, Jackson had to take Highway 50 again. Daylight this time. Alone. He told himself daylight meant safety. It did not. Midway through the run, he saw a woman in a white dress standing on the shoulder. No coat, no bag, no car nearby. Just her, perfectly still as if placed there. As he approached, the details broke. Her eyes sat too far apart. Her mouth looked too wide. Her skin had the waxy calm of a store mannequin trying to imitate a human being. Jackson stared, caught between braking and fleeing. The truck passed her, and she turned to follow him. Not like a person, like a display on a rotating stand. A smooth mechanical pivot that kept her face tracking the cab until Jackson could no longer see her in the mirror. Then Jackson felt it, that prickling certainty you get when you are being measured. Not watched casually, watched with purpose. A thought slid in, quiet and cold, not in words, but in meaning. We know you. Jackson told himself it was just a weird roadside moment. Then his CB radio hissed, one thin line of static, clean and steady, like a tone. No voice, no chatter, just a single frequency that didn't belong. A mile later, the world started to thin out. Not visually. Colorado still looked like Colorado, but sound became too clean. The tire noise dulled, like someone lowered the volume on the universe. Even the vibration through the wheel felt filtered. Jackson glanced at the clock. The digits looked normal, but the seconds didn't tick. So much as hold, like time was deciding whether to move. Then his headlights did something impossible in broad daylight. They were on. Bright, normal, and yet the beam hit the air ahead and stopped, flattened against an invisible surface just beyond the hood, as if the light couldn't move forward. Jackson whispered, no. He eased off the gas, instinct, then tried to correct back into the lane. The steering didn't resist. It wasn't stiff. It felt like the road had become a track and the truck was no longer his. And then the engine shut down. Not a cough, not a sputter, a clean surgical cut. RPM dropped to 0. The hum vanished. The cab became a sealed box of silence. He coasted to the shoulder, hands shaking, trying the ignition. Nothing. The dash stayed lit, but the lights looked wrong. Too steady, too perfect, like a screenshot of a dashboard rather than a living system. Jackson looked down at his phone on the seat. The screen was awake. One word sat there as if it had always been waiting. Stay. He didn't remember unlocking it. He didn't remember anyone typing it. And then he saw the shadow. It wasn't cast by clouds. It didn't match the sun's angle. It slid over the road in a shape that shouldn't exist. A triangle, wide enough to swallow his rig. Jackson forced himself to look up. A black triangular craft hung above Highway 50, low, silent, with 3 faint points of light at its corners. No seams, no detail. It didn't reflect sunlight so much as refuse it. The air changed, cold pressure behind the eyes, a metallic bite like ozone. From the center underside, something unfolded. Not a spotlight, but a hard-edged column of pale light, as straight as a doorway drawn into the air. Dust stopped drifting, and inside that column a figure resolved, tall, thin, with limbs that bent the wrong way, joints stacked where joints shouldn't be. It didn't walk down. It simply became present on the asphalt as if distance had been folded. Jackson's throat locked. He couldn't scream. Then the contact arrived, not through sound, but straight into his head, sharp and emotionless. Seen. A second pulse followed. Images that weren't his choice. The white hovering line from months ago, the GPS loop, the moment reality tore across the road. And then, the woman in the white dress, now not standing at the shoulder, but standing inside his memory like a bookmark. The same wrong face, the same fixed attention. Another thought pressed in, colder. Watcher, lure, alignment confirmed. The figure lifted a long hand and touched the truck's window. The fingers were too long, too many bends. The gesture wasn't threatening, it was testing, like learning what glass is. Jackson tried to move, his body didn't respond. Not paralysis, something worse. like his impulse had nowhere to go. Then the final thought landed, heavy as a verdict. Marked, continued. Sound snapped back, wind, distant traffic, the creak of the cab, the column of light was gone, the triangle was gone, the phone screen returned to normal like it had never shown anything. The engine restarted by itself. Jackson sat there breathing hard, staring at empty sky, knowing the scariest part wasn't the shutdown, it was how precisely it had all been timed. As if the roadside woman wasn't random, she was a trigger, a sign that the next stage had begun. That night he checked his dashcam. The file list jumped from 2:13 p.m. to 2:29 p.m., 16 minutes missing. The gap wasn't a corrupted file. It was cleanly removed, as if somebody had highlighted a strip of time and cut it out. 2 days later, a plain envelope appeared in his mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Inside, a single photo, taken from high above Highway 50 in daylight, his rig on the shoulder, and above it, unmistakable, the black triangle hanging perfectly centered. At the bottom, one line, "You were seen." And Jackson finally understood what the woman's stare had been. Not curiosity, not warning, a handoff. Jackson says the worst part wasn't the craft, it was the feeling that Highway 50 had turned into a checkpoint and he'd been processed. Because you can explain a blackout, you can explain a GPS loop, but you can't explain a photo taken from above your truck when you never saw anything up there. So tell me, if it happened to you, would you keep driving or would you vanish first? What kind of light refuses to cast any shadow in fog? What kind of encounter deletes 32 minutes cleanly? And why did Hannah quit after hearing silence speak? Marcus Calloway worked WS. Nights for 11 steady years. He patrolled Highway 20 through the North Cascades darkness. He trusted culverts, chains, radios, and winter procedure. Halloween 2021 brought thick fog near mile marker 108. He and rookie Hannah Westfield checked drains beside the road. The forest felt muted, like it was holding its breath. Fog swallowed the slope near mile marker 108. Marcus saw blue light through the trees. Hannah assumed a flare. Marcus felt it was watching them. The glow stayed fixed as fog moved. It left no spill on wet leaves. It left no reflection on puddles. That absence made Marcus uneasy. They climbed carefully with flashlights held low. Boots slid on needles and slick moss. The air smelled metallic and cold. The forest sounded quieter than snow. The sphere appeared between trunks, perfectly centered. It hovered at chest height, motionless. It was about 3 feet wide. Its edge looked clean, almost drawn. Marcus aimed his beam at the sphere. The beam curved around it. The fog behind stayed unchanged. No shadow formed anywhere. Hannah stepped closer and stopped breathing. Her radio clicked once, then died. Marcus heard a thin hum in teeth. It felt like pressure without sound. The sphere pulsed brighter, then dimmer. Faint geometric lines appeared in fog. The lines formed a grid, then vanished. Marcus saw the hillside overlaid with other moments. He saw summer ferns replace winter needles. He saw charred trunks, then fresh saplings. He saw future headlights cutting new asphalt. Hannah whispered someone stood behind it. Marcus saw a tall, thin outline in fog. It moved without steps, then dissolved. The sphere remained patient and close. Marcus tried speaking, but words felt delayed. His watch froze on 1 minute. The truck lights down slope looked farther away. The sphere pulsed again, stronger now. A thought pushed into his mind. It showed caves under the mountain, glowing faintly. It showed slender figures moving in silence. Hannah grabbed Marcus and pulled hard. Her glove brushed fog beside the sphere. The air felt colder, like water. Her fingers went numb instantly. They backed downhill, never turning away. The hum followed them like an escort. The grid flickered once on Marcus's lens. They reached the truck and slammed doors. The cab clock jumped forward 32 minutes. Marcus checked logs and found a clean gap. Hannah stared into fog and started crying. Marcus hunted answers off duty, staying off station radios. He pulled night logs from sheds and old depots. Some pages were missing, yet staples stayed. Inked call signs were scrubbed into gray bruises. The gaps felt intentional, not sloppy bureaucracy. He found a recurring symbol in margin doodles. It looked like a triangle made of dots. Different hands drew it, years apart. Each time it sat near water-related notes: culverts, runoff ditches, creek bends, and spring seeps. The pattern felt like a warning, not folklore. Marcus drove Highway 20 alone and waited inside fog. The air grew heavy near a rock cut. His dash clock paused, then jumped 2 minutes. A pale blue shimmer rose over the ditch. It hovered without reflecting on wet asphalt. His flashlight beam bent, then wrapped around nothing. The shimmer pulsed and the forest went unnaturally quiet. Marcus heard a soft cadence under static, like counting. His radio lit up without transmitting any voice. The speaker returned his breathing, delayed by a beat. Frost formed fractal lines across his windshield edge. The lines traced angles, then locked into a grid. A tall, thin outline appeared inside the headlight glare. It moved without stepping across the ditch. Its shape stayed sharp inside drifting fog. Marcus saw long fingers touch nothing. Then air rippled. The grid on glass brightened, then vanished at once. His phone camera saved only black frames. Marcus backed away, never turning from the shimmer. The blue point followed, staying aligned with his cab. The engine stumbled, then steadied without his touch. The dash lights dipped in a synchronized beat. The cadence on radio paused, as if listening. Then it resumed with a new rhythm. Marcus returned home and found mud on boots, still frozen. His GPS history showed a route he never drove. A new waypoint sat over a creek bend. The label used his own typing style. Marcus understood the boundary, could write back. Marcus returned with Hannah, despite her earlier resignation papers. She said closure required one last drive. They chose November 21st, before closures worsened. Fog clung to trees near mile marker 115. The ditch water ran thin and black. 3 blue spheres appeared, forming a perfect triangle. The triangle held steady without drift. No shadow formed beneath any sphere. The air felt heavy and close. Their truck electronics died in one clean drop. The dash went dark, then stayed dark. Hannah's phone went black, then stayed black. GPS froze on a blank coordinate. Only the headlights stayed bright and steady. One sphere drifted closer, silent and smooth. It stopped beside the hood, perfectly centered. Marcus felt pressure behind his eyes. Hannah clutched her chest, breathing shallow and fast. A thought arrived without words or sound. Marcus saw 10,000 years of seasons. He saw glaciers retreat and forests return. He saw ancient fires, then silent regrowth. He saw hot vents under rock glowing faintly. Hannah whispered she saw someone inside the fog. Marcus saw deep thermal caves under ridgelines. He saw tall, slender figures in chambers. Their limbs looked too long for humans. Their eyes looked dark and unblinking. The spheres showed water channels under the highway. They showed culverts as access points. They showed drilling biting deep rock. They showed collapsed chambers and poisoned springs. Hannah tried to speak into the radio. The radio opened itself instead. A thin cadence came through, measured and close. It sounded like counting, then correcting. The cadence synced with the triangle's slow rotation. Fog around the spheres formed faint geometric seams. The seams connected into a grid for seconds. The grid slid across the windshield glass. It aligned with old etched frost lines. Hannah pressed her palm to the window. Frost fractals formed under her fingers instantly. Her hand stayed against the glass, unmoving. A tall, slender figure appeared beyond the ditch. It was not fully visible in fog. It looked like absence shaped into a body. It moved without stepping, then stopped. Marcus raised his flashlight toward it. The beam curved around empty air again. The figure lifted a hand with long fingers. The triangle tightened, shrinking its spacing slightly. The nearest sphere brightened like a signal marker. Hannah's breath fogged the glass, then stopped. Marcus called her name, but sound felt swallowed. Her outline blurred, then doubled in the headlight glare. For one heartbeat, 2 Hannahs overlapped. Then the passenger seat was empty. The seatbelt lay buckled, still warm. A blizzard hit without warning, drowning the road. A huge geometric structure settled onto the highway. Its edges looked sharp, then soft, then sharp. The structure hovered without sound or wind. The humanoid figure stepped out beside it. It stood tall and slender in blowing snow. It had long fingers with narrow joints. Its eyes looked black and almond-shaped. It did not speak with a moving mouth. The warning arrived inside Marcus's thoughts. We are not invaders. We live here. Respect this boundary or consequences follow. The figure raised one hand toward the forest. The spheres flashed once, then dimmed. Marcus saw ridgelines mapped in faint light. He saw triangle marks pulsing along drainage lines. Then everything shut down at once. The structure lifted without sound or wind. The spheres folded into one point and vanished. The blizzard noise returned in a rush. Marcus drove back alone, hands shaking on the wheel. He could not recall the next 10 miles. Hannah never clocked in again after that night. Her resignation file stayed unsigned, then vanished. Dispatch logs showed her truck never left the yard, yet Marcus remembered her voice beside him. Marcus filed no report and kept private night logs. He searched ditches and culvert mouths at dawn. He found no tracks, no dropped gear, no answers. The boundary felt open, and it felt personal now. Did the spheres take Hannah, or copy her out of time? Tell me your theory, then hit like and subscribe. An indigo UFO hovered above Eielson runway, pulsing every 3 seconds. A small blue alien stood on snow, staring at Mason. 1 minute froze every device, while it watched him breathe. Mason hauled R-11 fuel at Eielson, night after night. Pilots joked about ghosts, but the runway had stranger rules. Blue lights sometimes floated beyond hangars, then vanished. Security logs showed gaps, and cameras saved black frames. Older crews whispered about an indigo UFO near the eastern tree line. They said a small blue alien walked the snow like it owned. Mason ignored the talk until his radio carried breathing. Cold nights made engines complain, but this silence felt engineered. On February 9, 2019, the rumors became a shift order. Night shift started with fuel smell and frozen breath. Mason drove the R-11 truck behind hangars alone. 4 F-16s waited with frost-crusted skins. He topped tanks with JP-8 under harsh floodlights. Jet exhaust left faint heat ghosts in snow fog. He cleared the main line and took the ring road. The road lay empty, lit by runway spill. The radio hiss thickened, like sand pouring through speakers. The hiss had rhythm, like slow inhaling. A clean indigo glow appeared above eastern snow. It pulsed every 3 seconds, perfectly timed. The UFO hung low, heavy light with no shadow. Mason watched the pulse reflect on icy taxi lines. His phone screen flickered, then looped 1942 and 1943. The digits swapped places by themselves each pulse. The truck clock froze, then jumped forward in blocks. Mason tapped the dash, and nothing responded. The UFO moved closer without sound or exhaust. Distance shrank too fast for any aircraft. Blue light spilled across the runway centerline. Snow turned glassy, bright, and painfully sharp. Security trucks stopped at the perimeter, engines idling low. Orders came clipped over a separate channel hold position. Nobody stepped closer, even with rifles ready. The sphere dropped to 50 feet above the runway. The radio hiss deepened and carried breathing again. Mason heard it between bursts of static. Each breath matched the 3-second pulse. Then something small stood under the light. A blue alien faced Mason from the snow. Its head formed a sharp triangle silhouette. Its eyes looked black and deep, without pupils. Its arms looked too long for its height. 3 fingers lifted slowly, mirroring the pulse. Mason blinked, and the alien was nearer suddenly. No footprints marked the snow between positions. Frost crawled across the windshield in geometric petals. The fuel ticket printer paused midline and clicked. The nozzle gauge needle trembled, then held steady. Mason felt chest pressure with each pulse. His ears rang without any sound. The alien tilted its head, studying his face. Runway lights flickered once, then stabilized. The alien vanished, then reappeared beside a runway marker. It stood closer than headlights should allow. The UFO brightened and dimmed like a heartbeat. Then it launched upward and erased itself in seconds. Wind returned with a rushing slap of cold air. After the runway cleared, Mason checked his paperwork in the cab. The fuel log showed a 13-minute blank gap. The truck GPS track looked straight, then stopped abruptly. The time column repeated the same minute twice. His phone history showed calls that never happened. The radio channel list reset to factory defaults. Mason replayed dash audio and heard only hiss. Under the hiss, the breathing returned for 1 beat. Maintenance pulled the truck for inspection at first light. Mechanics found nothing wrong with wiring or battery. The engine computer showed no fault codes at all. Yet every digital clock near the flight line matched one freeze. They all stopped for 1 minute, then resumed together. A lab analyst reviewed the anomaly quietly. NOAA satellite data showed the R-11 moved 200 yards. The vehicle GPS stayed frozen from 1936 to 1937. The same freeze hit radar and security monitors nearby. A camera frame showed snow mid-fall suspended. The next frame showed the same snow lower, still falling. Nobody could find the missing images between. The analyst compared mechanical and biological traces next. Tire marks continued through the frozen minute. Footprints advanced in the snow without interruption. Mason's heart monitor showed steady rhythm, no pause. He remembered blinking during that minute, twice. He remembered the alien closer than before, watching. He remembered 3 fingers lifted, then lowered. He remembered a symbol shaped like a ring. It hovered in his mind like an afterimage. The analyst said the minute was not lost for humans. They said it was denied to electronics only. They called it selective suppression of recording systems. Mason heard the phrase and felt cold again. If a device cannot record, it cannot prove anything. The base wrote interference in the official line. Mason signed the form and watched ink dry slowly. That night, he noticed a new scar on his palm. It was a pale circle with sharp edges. It did not hurt and did not fade. When he pressed it against cold glass, warmth returned. For a moment, the radio hiss inside his head came back. Mason volunteered for an observation post after that first freeze. He wanted distance from hangars and gossip. The post sat near a berm beyond runway lights. It was a small box of glass and steel. Snow drifted against its base like piled ash. The radio hiss returned there every night, patient. Before sunrise, the indigo UFO appeared again, pulsing steadily. It hovered low, then sank toward the snow. The light looked dense and heavy, yet silent. A second smaller glow formed beneath it, like a doorway. The air inside the post turned dry and cold. Mason saw his digital watch stop mid-second. A small blue alien stepped out onto the snow. It was about 4 feet tall. Its head formed a sharp triangle silhouette. Its eyes were black, deep, and without pupils. Its arms hung too long for its frame. It moved with smooth, careful efficiency. 2 taller figures appeared behind it, half inside glow. They stayed still, like guards. Their limbs looked longer and their faces looked blank. Mason could not hear footsteps on snow. He could only hear his own breath. The small alien approached the observation glass slowly. It raised a 3-fingered hand and pressed the pane. Frost bloomed outward in perfect fractal geometry. Symbols appeared inside the frost, forming a ring and line. Mason lifted his own palm to match it. Warmth rushed through his hand and up his arm. His chest pressure eased, then returned in pulses. A voice entered his mind without sound. It spoke in images, not words. He saw a frozen planet under dim stars. He saw underground bases glowing beneath ice. He saw tunnels branching like veins through stone. He saw the indigo sphere moving between points without travel. He saw runways drawn as lines on a grid. He saw Eielson as a dot within a map. He saw other dots lighting up, then dimming. The small alien shifted its head toward his face. Mason felt examined, counted, measured. The taller figures behind it leaned forward slightly. Their black eyes reflected nothing, not even his flashlight. For 3 breaths, time felt stacked in layers. One layer showed snow falling outside the glass. Another layer showed the same snow suspended midair. Another layer showed the runway empty, yet lit blue. Mason blinked and felt missing frames. The alien lifted its fingers and traced one last symbol. The symbol looked like a circle within a circle. Mason felt the hum align with his heartbeat. The post lights dimmed, then stabilized again. The alien withdrew its hand and stepped back. The doorway glow folded inward without sound. The indigo UFO rose without stirring snow. It blinked once, then launched upward and vanished. Mason looked down at his palm and saw a pale circle. The edge was sharp, like a stamp. Mason separated early in July 2019 with full benefits. He moved to Montana and tried normal routines but couldn't. Nights stayed the hardest and sleep came in fragments. He avoided mirrors and windows after dark. Indigo pulses returned in dreams, timed every 3 seconds. Sometimes he woke with radio hiss in his ears. Sometimes he woke standing, palm pressed to cold glass. He kept the pale circle scar as proof of the missing minute. He also kept the fear, sharper than winter air. He knew the record could be erased at will. If time can be edited, who decides what humans remember? Was the minute taken or planted inside him? Leave your theory below, then like and subscribe for the next file. Radar showed nothing, yet Derek saw it clearly. A white point hung low with a blue rim. Then it jumped like missing film frames. Each jump crushed his chest from the inside. Derek Haynes was 34 and careful by habit. He had Air Force security training behind him. Now he worked contract patrol near Nellis test ranges. He drove Unit 7 for 10-hour night shifts. He watched fences, trails, and boundary markers. He wrote clean logs and avoided rumors. But rumors lived here anyway, in low valleys. Contractors spoke of lights without sound. They spoke of chest pressure and missing minutes. Derek ignored them until November 14th. He started at 1,800 hours and rolled out. He headed toward Checkpoint 2 on low hills. The sky looked clear, yet the air felt wrong. A single white point sat low above the ridgeline. It was too low for stars. It was too high for towers. It did not blink or drift. Derek eased the F-250 and watched longer. The point stayed fixed, like a pin in black cloth. He called dispatch and asked for range radar. Range radar reported empty sky, no tracks. Derek raised binoculars and held his breath. The point carried a faint blue rim. The rim looked like welding sparks, yet steady. There was no strobe pattern, no navigation rhythm, no engine sound reached the hills, no rotor chop, no distant jet whine. The silence felt deliberate, not accidental. He checked landmarks and confirmed the angle twice. The point stayed exactly above the same notch. Then the air changed without wind. Derek felt pressure around his ears. His skin tingled under his collar. The binocular view sharpened for 1 second. He saw a thin circular edge around the light. The point vanished cleanly, no fade, no streak. The blue rim blinked once, then nothing. Derek watched for any reappearance. The sky remained empty and indifferent. His radio carried only normal range chatter, yet his chest still felt tight. He completed the patrol route and returned to the break area. Another contractor was parked there, engine idling. Derek mentioned the white point without leading questions. The contractor described the same blue rim, same height. Their radio logs also showed empty sky reports. Derek realized it was not a solo error, it was a shared intrusion. 2 nights later, November 16th, the light returned again. It held the same position above the notch. Derek parked on a turnout and watched. The point jumped from A to B instantly. No streak appeared between those points. Each jump hit his chest like compressed air. His ears popped without altitude change. The windshield vibrated, then went still. Range radar again reported empty sky. Yet Derek watched the jumps clearly. The timing felt measured, not random. Reports piled up fast across 8 nights. 7 patrols logged the same white point. Range Supervision issued upgraded observation gear. Derek received a GPS tracker and camera. He received a time-synced audio recorder. On November 22nd, the point appeared right on schedule. Derek captured a clear photo and coordinates. Then 4 more lights blinked into existence. They formed a shallow arc above the valley. The arc bent into a clean curve, then held. Each light had a faint blue rim. None cast any shadow on cloud. The lights began trading positions with perfect timing. They swapped like chess pieces, without travel. Each swap matched a chest pressure pulse. Derek felt pulses while fully stopped. His recorder caught a thin harmonic tone. The tone rose during faster swaps. The arc suddenly inverted into a mirror arc. Then it collapsed into a tight triangle. Then it stretched into a straight line. Each shape change took 1 blink. Derek watched the ridgeline beneath them brighten softly. The glow came from nowhere visible. His phone saved black frames during peak brightness. His GPS drew broken segments in the track log. The brakes aligned with each shape shift. It felt like space was being edited live. His files were reviewed without a signature or name. The next shift included extra batteries and storage. The approval felt like a quiet instruction. Keep watching and do not talk. On November 29th, the desert answered with scale and certainty. Derek drove a ridge road above the basin. 5 vertical lights dropped into the valley. They fell like pillars, perfectly straight. No dust rose from their impact. The air felt pressurized and dry. The stars above seemed dimmer for seconds. Even the horizon looked slightly bowed. 3 large objects slid along the basin floor. They were bus-sized and silver gray. Their shapes ignored wings, rotors, and wheels. They moved without engine noise or tracks. Derek's zoom showed smooth hulls in moonlight. No seams were visible on their surfaces. The vertical lights shifted positions without travel. They blinked into new coordinates together. The formation redrew itself in 1 beat. An arc became a triangle, then a line. Each change matched a chest pressure pulse. Derek's ribs tightened with every swap. His ears popped without any altitude change. His headlights reflected nothing from the pillars. His windshield vibrated, then went perfectly still. Figures appeared near the landed objects, 12 to 15. They looked humanoid, yet proportioned wrong. Arms hung too long, with narrow-jointed fingers. Heads looked elongated, with black almond eyes. Skin looked pale gray, with a wet matte sheen. Their movement was smooth, efficient, and synchronized. They circled the objects like trained technicians. One figure knelt beside the dirt and touched nothing. The ground frost patterned into geometric cells. The cells pulsed faintly, then faded. Another figure looked toward Derek's truck lights. Derek felt seen, despite distance and clear air. Derek raised the camera and recorded steadily. The internal pressure became rhythmic and deliberate. Each pulse matched a light repositioning above the valley. His radio hissed, then formed a clipped cadence. It sounded like commands without language. The cadence paused, then resumed with corrections. Derek watched his GPS screen flicker, then blank. The clock on his dash froze, then jumped ahead. His camera preview showed two basins, slightly misaligned. He blinked, and the misalignment remained. A narrow beam rose from the nearest pillar. The beam connected to a silver hull briefly. The hull edge shimmered, then became razor clear. One figure lifted its hand toward the beam. The beam dimmed, then shifted sideways instantly. Derek saw the figures pause as one group. They turned together toward the ridge. Their heads angled slightly, unblinking. Derek's breath sounded loud inside his cab. A new voice cut into range control, hard and close. It used perfect brevity and hard authority. "Leave the area now, Unit 7. Return to base immediately, no questions." Derek looked back at the figures once more. The nearest pillar narrowed into a sharper line. For a second, the basin looked flattened. Distance felt wrong, like a bent lens. Derek's dashboard clock jumped forward 90 seconds. His recorder captured only silence during that jump. Then sound returned, louder than before. Derek drove out fast, staying on marked roads. He kept the camera running the whole time. His headlights caught a faint blue rim on rocks. The rim vanished when he looked directly. His chest pressure eased, then returned in pulses. Each pulse matched a far light blink behind him. He reached the gate faster than expected. The gate clock disagreed with his dash clock. Black SUVs were waiting at the gate. No plates, no markings, no small talk. People in dark clothing took his devices. They logged serial numbers without names. Derek asked for receipts and got none. One person asked about chest pressure symptoms. Another asked about the counting cadence. Derek realized they expected his exact answers. Back in his quarters, the pressure lingered for hours. His ears rang with the same thin tone. When he closed his eyes, he saw geometry. He saw arcs collapsing into triangles and lines. He saw pale figures circling silver hulls. He wondered if he was dismissed or recruited. 3 weeks later, Derek was summoned for a closed debrief. His photos appeared on a table, already labeled. They used the term NHE without explanation. They blamed radar blindness on spectrum control. They blamed chest pressure on propulsion effects. They offered Derek a choice and no paperwork. Walk away and forget, or keep watching. Derek chose the second path, despite fear. The lights returned again, more often than before, and Derek learned the range was never empty. Are they hiding here, or training us to accept them? Tell me your theory, then hit like and subscribe. Grant McCarthy thought he understood the Alaskan sky. Then the aurora stopped behaving like the aurora. A pale band froze rigid in midair, and inside it a perfect white line appeared, thin, steady, and too precise to be natural. In the same moment, the Twin Otter's radios fell into absolute silence. Digital systems began lying, and the shape in the sky started moving as if it could read the aircraft. This is not a story about chasing UFOs. It is about a repeating pattern that interacts with an aircraft like a controlled experiment. Communications cut out without static. Digital avionics drift into absurd errors, while analog instruments remain steady. A geometric form appears inside the aurora, rotates with mechanical smoothness, and then begins to match the plane's movement with unnerving precision. Grant McCarthy, 41, was trained to trust procedure, instruments, and weather models. His co-pilot, Renee Voss, carried the same discipline. Their route from Fairbanks to Barrow was familiar, remote, and usually uneventful. What happened on two separate flights suggested something else lived in that corridor, something capable of touching a machine in midair and leaving physical proof behind. Early February, the Twin Otter lifted from Fairbanks and flew north without issue for hours. Then the Aurora formed ahead and stopped behaving like the Aurora. A long east-west band of light froze rigid in mid-motion. Inside that frozen curtain, a single white line appeared, razor straight, pencil thin, bright enough to force a squint. It held perfectly still, too precise to feel natural. The cockpit failed in a way that felt selective. Radios dropped into absolute silence, primary and backup, with no static. GPS flickered and began reporting impossible jumps, altitude numbers spiking and collapsing while analog dials stayed calm. Ahead, the white line rotated with mechanical smoothness, tilted slightly, corrected, then appeared closer in sudden steps, as if its distance updated between blinks. It split into three identical lines and arranged into a perfect triangle, point up, centered in the forward view. When Grant altered heading, the triangle rotated to stay aligned with the nose. When he adjusted altitude, it matched the change with exact timing. It was tracking. A harsh burst of static snapped through the headset, and a monotone male voice issued a directive to maintain heading and not deviate. The triangle flared once in intense white and vanished. The Aurora resumed normal motion. Radios returned, GPS stabilized. Yet the aircraft recorded a communications loss the ground logs did not acknowledge. After landing at Barrow, the proof was on the airframe. Thick frost coated both wings, far heavier than expected, and a faint scorched discoloration marked the nose, which stayed warm long after shutdown. The official inspection found no shorts, no clear damage, no mechanical explanation. On paper, it became an unexplained malfunction with possible Aurora interference. In the cockpit, it remained something else. Grant could not ignore how selective it had been. Radio silence without noise, digital lies without analog failure, geometry that behaved like a guided instrument rather than atmospheric light. In early March, Grant and Renee flew the same corridor again with no passengers. A single white point appeared ahead, then blinked out. The radio cracked once, and the same monotone voice returned, issuing a calm directive that tried to steer them by command rather than by control tower procedure. The temperature in the cockpit dropped rapidly. Frost crept along the windshield edges. GPS flickered. The white point returned as a line, then divided into three, forming the triangle again as the Aurora seemed to fade away behind it. The triangle held its position relative to the aircraft like a lock-on symbol, matching heading and altitude changes with exact timing. Then the aircraft's behavior shifted from abnormal to impossible. It dipped hard, then surged into a steep climb driven by full power without pilot input. The yoke locked. At 14,200 feet, the climb stopped instantly, and the aircraft held as if pinned in place, engines settling into idle without the expected fall. The triangle moved closer, and the pilots realized it was not the object. It was an outline, edges of something larger, dark, massive, silent, filling the forward view and erasing depth. Control returned violently during a sudden drop. At lower altitude, the aircraft stabilized and the dark mass disappeared. After landing, the physical marks were clearer. Frost again clung to wings. The nose discoloration remained. Beneath the fuselage, three parallel burn lines were scored into the paint, evenly spaced, precise as measurement marks. This time, the response did not stay inside rumor and logbooks. FAA investigator Patricia Keller confirmed the physical evidence aligned with the crew's timeline. The scorch patterns suggested thermal exposure rather than scraping, chemicals, or maintenance error. The burn lines under the belly were too uniform to be random damage, and the paint showed signs of heat applied in narrow bands. The frost samples showed unusual crystalline structure, closer to conditions the aircraft had not actually flown through. Even the heat on the nose after shutdown behaved wrong, lingering like the metal had absorbed energy and refused to give it back. What made it worse was the system-like behavior. The failures were selective, almost surgical. Radios went silent without the messy signature of interference. Digital systems became unreliable in clusters, while the analog instruments stayed stable enough to keep the crew alive. The geometry appeared inside the Aurora, then acted like a tracking tool, rotating to remain aligned with the aircraft's nose and copying altitude changes as if it was reading a live stream of the plane's state. That suggested intent, or at least a process that responded to control inputs. Grant began searching for precedent. He found a declassified military report from the 1980s describing a strikingly similar event over the North Slope. Communications loss without conventional noise, navigation anomalies, and heat-related discoloration on aircraft surfaces. Different decade, different crew, same region, same fingerprint. The corridor was not producing a new anomaly. It was repeating an old one. That changed how the story felt. It was no longer a strange night with a strange light. It became a long-running pattern embedded in that airspace. A phenomenon that could reach into a cockpit's systems, reduce a modern aircraft to partial blindness, then present a geometric form that behaved with the calm precision of machinery. It did not need to chase the plane. It only needed to establish rules, force compliance, and then release control once the demonstration was complete. The official conclusion remained conservative. Unknown aerial phenomenon, possible environmental influence, unexplained equipment malfunction. The words were safe because they did not claim more than regulators could prove. Operationally, the response spoke louder. Grant McCarthy and Renee Voss were reassigned to southern routes. The Fairbanks to Barrow corridor became a place their company preferred not to test again, not because they could define the threat, but because the threat had already proven it could touch an aircraft and leave marks that survived the flight. For Grant, the last meaning was personal and cold. That route felt claimed. Not claimed by a nation or a weather system, but claimed by an intelligence or mechanism that could impose behavior on machines in midair. The frost was a signature. The heat scars were a signature. The 3 burn lines were a signature. A way of saying contact happened, and contact could happen again. Grant never saw the lines again, but the pattern stayed. He kept flying, but he watched the aurora differently, scanning for the moment it might freeze, for the moment a perfect straightness might appear, where nature should only ripple. When other pilots mentioned radios going dead with no static, GPS jumping while analog stayed calm, sudden frost that made no sense, or heat scars on metal, Grant listened because he recognized the structure behind it. Now it turns to you. What fits better? Classified testing, rare atmospheric physics, or an intelligence imposing rules on machines in midair? If the sky signaled tomorrow, would you recognize a pattern or explain it away until it fades? Drop your theories in the comments. Subscribe for new sightings, anomalous energy readings, and the repeating patterns hiding in plain sight. This isn't just a story, it's a warning. Erin Massey had flown Wichita to Hays so many times she could picture the route with her eyes closed. Same towers, same farmhouse lights, same quiet Kansas night that made you forget the world was big. At 10:39 p.m. she saw a light dead ahead, sitting exactly on her flight path. Too steady, too yellow, too fixed. Wichita Center said the radar was clean, no traffic, no towers at her altitude, nothing. She eased 5 degrees north to go around it. The light stayed centered in her windshield. She corrected again. It stayed centered, like it wasn't in the sky, like it was locked onto her. At a mile out, the single light split into 7, arranged in a perfect circle, rotating slowly around a core of darkness, darker than the night itself. Her radio drowned in static. The engine hiccuped once, then again, like it was choking on air that wasn't air. The 7 lights stopped rotating at the same time, and Erin understood, with a cold certainty that hit her stomach before her mind could catch up. They weren't floating there. They were waiting. A Cessna 172 is a simple aircraft, and Kansas is a simple sky. That is why the anomaly hit so hard. The light did not blink like aviation lights, did not drift like a star, and did not show on radar. It behaved as if it knew her route, her altitude, her decisions. Erin did not want to believe it was intentional, but the feeling grew anyway. Something was choosing her. Erin saw a dull yellow light dead ahead at her exact altitude. It didn't blink, didn't drift, and Wichita Center saw nothing on radar. She turned 5 degrees north to give it space. The light stayed centered in her windscreen. She turned again, still centered, like it was matching her. At 2 miles, it resolved into 7 lights in a perfect circle, rotating slowly around a center darker than the night sky, a solid disc-shaped void swallowing starlight. Her radio drowned in heavy static. Her engine coughed once, then twice. Gauges stayed normal. The 7 lights stopped rotating in the same instant, and the cockpit flooded with harsh yellow, like daylight with no shadows. Then the engine simply stopped. Clean. Total. She pushed the nose down to glide and ran the restart checklist, but nothing responded. The 7 lights slid out of formation and surrounded her, moving with her descent like an escort. She grabbed her phone to record. The screen turned pure white. A single word appeared: activated. Ahead, the underside of the dark disk seemed to open like a doorway. For one breath, she saw a tall, thin silhouette in that opening, watching her without moving. Then everything snapped back. The disk shot straight up and vanished. The 7 lights were gone. Her radio cleared. Her engine roared to life as if nothing had happened. Erin kept flying, hands shaking, with only that one word burning in her mind: activated. Hayes Tower cleared Erin in like any normal night, but on short final she saw Tommy Greer's pickup by the terminal, headlights pulsing in perfect expanding circles, like a slow mechanical heartbeat. The tower said their cameras showed nothing unusual. She landed. By the time she shut down, Tommy's lights were steady again. Normal. Her phone wasn't. One photo saved at the exact time of the encounter. The image showed only empty sky and stars, but in the corner, a single word sat there like it had been stamped into reality: activated. Tommy didn't laugh when she asked if he'd seen anything strange. His face tightened, like he'd been waiting for someone else to say it first. He told her he'd seen the same thing over a wheat field outside town. 7 yellow lights in a perfect circle, rotating slowly, then shooting straight up and vanishing. He drove her out there. In the field, a flawless 30-foot circle marked the ground. The wheat stubble inside wasn't crushed or burned, just bent at exact 90-degree angles into a spiraling pattern, too precise to be weather, too clean to be human. No footprints, no tracks, just geometry, as if something had pressed a symbol into the land and left without touching it. Back at the hotel, the fear turned sharper. Erin came out of the shower to find her phone awake on the bed, camera running, aimed at the window like an eye. She hadn't touched it. In the corner of the screen, the word appeared again: activated. She tried to shut it off. It reopened. She wrapped the phone in a towel and locked it in the bathroom, but the feeling stayed. Not that she was being watched by people. That something in the sky had noticed her, marked her, and was still there. The next morning didn't feel new. It felt like the night had only changed its clothes. Erin woke before her alarm with a pressure behind her eyes. Her phone was on the pillow beside her head, even though she'd sealed it away. The time flickered. A calendar alert sat on the screen, impossible to delete. Runway 36, 7 a.m., do not be late. She tried everything: delete, power off, settings, airplane mode. The alert always returned, calm and absolute, like a command that didn't need her consent. Tommy texted her to meet at the field. The crop circle was no longer just geometry. In the pre-dawn dark, the spiral faintly glowed, each bent stalk outlined with a cold bluish light, uniform and precise like a circuit traced into nature. Erin raised her phone to film. The camera app crashed instantly. Tommy showed her his phone. A GPS route had appeared by itself, coordinates northwest of Hayes, and when he tried to remove it, it reset. 2 devices, 2 people, the same invisible hand. At Hayes, the airport looked ordinary, but Erin felt watched the way you feel it in your bones. She pre-flighted the Cessna with obsessive care. Nothing wrong, nothing touched. She lifted off at 7 a.m. on runway 36. At 500 feet, her phone chimed. A new message from no sender. Maintain heading 350. Climb to 7500. Do not deviate. She obeyed. At altitude, the prairie opened below. Clean daylight. Nowhere to hide. Dead ahead, a single yellow light hovered at her level. Steady and wrong. It didn't blink. It didn't drift. It simply existed in her path like a pinned star. More text appeared. Approach at current altitude. Maintain airspeed. Her radio thickened with static, crushing every frequency at once. The air in the cockpit felt thin, charged. The yellow light grew larger until it resolved into the underside of a disc, dark enough to seem like it absorbed sunlight. Panels and seams cut across it with geometric precision. Markings ran along the surface, too structured to be damaged, too alien to be human script. Then an opening formed beneath it. It didn't hinge or unfold. It separated, as if reality was being sliced cleanly and pulled apart. A rectangular void, perfectly sized in a way that made her stomach drop. Erin tried to pull away. The yoke resisted, not jammed, simply overridden. The plane descended with gentle certainty she didn't command. The yellow glow intensified until the cockpit looked like harsh noon. Shadows vanished, depth collapsed, sound thinned. Her phone went white. One word appeared, activated, and then time fractured. Later she would swear it was only seconds, but the altitude didn't match. The clock didn't match. Her memory had holes with sharp edges. When the static cleared, the disk was gone. The sky was normal. The engine ran as if it had never stuttered. Her phone was back to normal too, except for a new photo in her camera roll. It was crystal clear. The underside of the disk in daylight, unmistakable. In the metadata, where location should be, there were only coordinates. Erin followed them. In the middle of farmland that should have been empty, she saw a facility that should not exist. White buildings arranged with sterile symmetry. A tall fence topped with razor wire. And at the center, a massive dish antenna angled toward the sky like an ear pressed to space. Whatever had activated her hadn't just shown itself. It had left a trail. And it was leading her somewhere on purpose. Activated didn't mean her phone. It meant her. The pattern is the point. Isolation first, then electronics go dead, then you're guided by instructions with no sender. Evidence shows up already curated, while time itself goes missing in a clean, measurable block your body can't explain. If Erin is telling the truth, this wasn't a warning, and it wasn't an accident. It was contact done with precision. The disc, the opening, the sphere, the erased minutes, and the switch left on inside her afterward. So here's the question. If the sky spoke to you tomorrow through missing time and a single word burned into your proof, would you call it a glitch? Or would you admit it was a message? Drop your theories in the comments. Subscribe for more sightings, missing time patterns, and the hidden signals above ordinary roads. The desert highway looked unchanged in starlight, a thin ribbon of asphalt cutting through nothing. Evan Strickland stood beside his truck and watched 3 lights appear over the flats, one by one, perfectly spaced, the wrong color for any aircraft. They did not blink. They held position like marks on a grid. The lights began to orbit, not around each other, around Evan and Tessa Jordan. The air thickened. A hum formed behind Evan's eyes, then in his teeth, too clean to be wind. For a moment, his boots separated from the asphalt by a few inches, as if gravity had been negotiated away. Then everything snapped back. The lights were gone. The night looked normal. Evan checked his watch and felt his stomach drop. Time had moved backward. Nevada at night can make reality feel thin. Evan was 26 when it started, and he spent 11 years carrying the same unanswered gap. He was driving in a small military convoy on State Route 375 toward a classified site near Rachel. 5 vehicles, 12 personnel, routine on paper. The only reason he never wrote it off as his own mind was Tessa Jordan. She was there too, and years later she came back with the same nightmares and the same missing minutes. The first 2 hours were pure routine. No moon, stars dense enough to look textured, the road empty, the desert flat, the horizon erased. Then the radios failed. Not interference, not fading, a clean sudden silence that did not behave like terrain. Every channel died at once. The quiet felt engineered, like a hand placed over the spectrum. The convoy stopped in the same instant. Evan did not brake. The truck simply settled into a controlled halt. No brake lights ahead, no brake lights behind. 5 vehicles frozen in place. Evan looked up and saw a triangular absence sliding over the stars. Not a shadow, a shape that removed starlight. Massive, slow, silent, moving with purpose. Then the truck died completely. No dashboard glow, no engine vibration, no electronics like the world had been switched off around them. A thin beam dropped from the triangle. The color was wrong, pale with a faint blue edge that made the eyes ache. It swept the road slowly, left to right, revealing rocks and brush and cracked asphalt. But it cast no shadows. Objects looked flat, two-dimensional, like the ground had become a surface being read rather than lit. The beam stopped ahead of the convoy and held perfectly still. Evan could not measure time. His watch froze. With engines dead and radios silent, There was only breathing and the beam that behaved like something beyond physics. Then the beam retracted upward and the triangle rose, shrinking until the stars returned in their exact positions. Engines restarted on their own. Dashboards lit. Radios crackled alive. The convoy rolled forward again as if nothing had happened. At the checkpoint, Evan noticed the impossible detail. His watch was running again, but the time displayed was 13 minutes earlier than it should have been. Station clocks matched, logs matched. The timeline did not. The next morning, Evan found Tessa carrying the same hollow look. She had seen a detail he could not explain. The light behaved as if illumination and absence were separate things, moving independently. They searched for proof. Vehicle data should have shown a stop. GPS traces should have recorded a halt. Engine logs should have captured the shutdown. Instead, the records showed continuous forward motion from base to checkpoint, clean and uninterrupted, as if the convoy never paused at all. Tessa found something worse. The checkpoint perimeter cameras contained a missing block of footage exactly 13 minutes long, stamped with a generic electrical error code that did not fit the station's backup power. The gap matched the time distortion on Evan's watch with surgical precision. Evan tested the memory of others. A rear security driver who should have had the best view insisted the transport had been routine. No anomaly, no stop. The denial felt less like stubbornness and more like absence, the way starlight had been absent under the triangle. They chose silence. In their world, reporting the impossible did not trigger investigation, it triggered evaluation. The story moved into their bodies instead, becoming insomnia and fragments that arrived like broken footage, curved blue-lit walls, a smooth warm table surface that did not feel like metal, figures just outside focus, pressure in the skull that felt like questions without words. Evan left the military months later and tried to build a normal life. It cracked anyway. 10 years passed, then Tessa returned with the same nightmares and the same wrong math in the clock. Long dream hours collapsed into a few real minutes. Evan's fragments sharpened too, brief flashes of curved blue lit walls and silhouettes that never held focus. They went back to Nevada anyway. At dusk, the desert looked harmless, almost empty on purpose. By full night, it became what Evan remembered, a place that feels like it is waiting. They parked on the shoulder near the stretch that felt right and stepped out into a silence so deep it made the blood in Evan's ears sound loud. The first light appeared above the flats, a steady point with that pale, wrong hue. A second arrived beside it, then a third, perfectly spaced. They did not blink like aircraft. They held position like markers, then began to move in a controlled orbit, circling Evan and Tessa as if measuring them. Above the road, a triangular absence slid into view and swallowed starlight. Not a shadow, not cloud, a clean geometric void that moved with intent. Under its centerline, a thin beam dropped, the same color Evan remembered from 2013, pale with a faint blue edge that hurt to stare at. The beam did not wash the desert with light. It carved a column of clarity through the darkness, and the ground inside it looked unnaturally flat, like texture without depth. The air thickened. A hum formed behind Evan's eyes, then in his teeth. Frost began to creep along the edges of Tessa's jacket despite the dry night, as if the temperature inside that corridor had been lowered independent of the world around it. Their truck died behind them without a sputter, lights off, engine silent, the dashboard blank in one clean cut. Inside the beam, figures resolved. Tall, narrow silhouettes standing where there should have been only empty desert. They did not walk in from the darkness. They appeared in positions, spaced with measured precision, facing the road as if it were a stage. Their limbs looked too long, their posture too still, and the edges of their bodies shimmered faintly as if they were not fully solid. When one of them turned its head, it did so without shifting weight, a smooth mechanical rotation that made Evan's stomach tighten. The beam held steady. The triangular void hovered low enough now that Evan could sense its scale, a silent mass pressing down on the night. The three orbiting lights tightened their circle, and Evan felt the moment his body stopped belonging to him. His boots separated from the asphalt by inches. Tessa rose beside him, rigid and weightless, her hair lifting as if underwater. The hum became a chord, layered and structured like a signal. Then everything snapped back. They dropped to the road. The beam retracted straight up, as if pulled by a reel. The void slid away, releasing the stars in perfect alignment. The truck's engine restarted on its own. Evan checked the time and felt his pulse spike. 13 minutes had inverted again, returned like a correction, as if the night had been edited and saved over. Tessa's face had changed. Not relief, recognition. A shock of memory trying to surface all at once, too large for language, leaving only tears and a tremor in her hands. Evan looked back to the desert where the figures had stood. The snowless ground was undisturbed, no footprints, no tracks, only a faint circular discoloration on the asphalt near where the beam had touched, as if heat had kissed the surface and left a subtle ring. Something had been there with them, not just lights in the sky, not just a craft, witnesses in the beam, watching closely enough to be seen, then choosing to vanish with the evidence. Route 375 doesn't feel like a random sighting. It feels like a repeatable method. Engines cut, radios muted, footage gapped, time bent, witnesses left arguing with their own clocks. If you've ever lost minutes on an empty road, if your electronics died all at once, if the sky looked like it removed the stars instead of covering them, tell me what happened. Patterns only surface when enough people compare the same impossible details. Drop your theories in the comments. Subscribe for more missing time cases and sightings that keep repeating where the desert is quiet enough to listen. A dead zone lasted 47 minutes on radar. Dustin lived 3 missing hours instead. Something tall and faceless waited beside the spheres. Dustin ran long-haul routes between Las Vegas and Reno. He carried construction loads and kept night schedules. On June 17, 2020, dispatch sent him a shortcut. The route skirted the Tonopah test range in open desert. He reached Goldfield around 10 that night. The air felt wrong before he saw anything. The radio crackle thinned, then dropped into dead silence. 2 white lights hovered ahead, low above the roadway. They were not headlights, and they cast no shadows. As he approached, his phone lost signal instantly. His radio died, and even static disappeared. The lights resolved into 2 spheres, floating 3 meters high. Each sphere held a faint blue rim, steady and sharp. Cabin temperature dropped fast, biting through his jacket. Frost filmed the inside glass in thin sheets. The diesel engine cut off by itself, without a sputter. Absolute silence filled the cab, heavy and pressurized. A low hum rose through the seat and into his teeth. Dustin felt his chest tighten in slow pulses. In the dim glow, a tall, slender figure stepped forward. Its limbs looked too long and too narrow. Its face seemed smooth, with no clear features. It moved with steady efficiency, never rushing. Another figure appeared behind it, then another. They held position beside the spheres, like a line. Dustin could not move, not even his hands. His eyes stayed open, yet his body refused. The spheres brightened once, then dimmed again. The nearest figure reached the driver door and stopped. Long fingers hovered near the handle without touching. Then the light snapped off as if switched. The engine restarted by itself, idling smoothly. Wind returned in a sudden rush outside. The frost on glass melted too quickly, leaving streaks. Dustin drove hard toward Tonopah without looking back. At a station, he checked the clock and receipts. Almost 3 hours were missing from his memory. 2 weeks later, Dustin returned with cameras and spare batteries. He reached the same shoulder at 10:52 p.m. The air went still before any light appeared. 2 spheres formed above the asphalt, perfectly aligned. They looked larger now, and oddly faceted. Their skin swallowed headlight glare, leaving no reflection. A blue rim held steady, sharp, and silent. The hum returned and pressed behind his eyes. Frost crawled along vents and across the steering wheel. Tall figures stood beside the spheres, arranged like sentries. They were thin, too tall, and motionless at first. One stepped forward with long, jointed fingers. Its face looked smooth, without features, yet somehow watching. A voice entered his mind, cold and measured. "Do not move, you are being observed." His hands clenched, yet his arms felt far away. The figure raised a hand toward the windshield. Ice flowered instantly into geometric fractals across the glass. A fingertip traced symbols through the frost, without pressure. Dustin filmed, keeping his face visible in frame. Every file saved black, with clean gaps in the audio. Even the clip timestamps jumped forward in uneven steps. When the spheres blinked out, the frost vanished too quickly. Dustin drove hard until Tonopah lights appeared. At dawn, an envelope waited under his wiper blade. Inside were radar scope prints from June 17. His truck track entered a hollow, then vanished completely. The hollow lasted exactly 47 minutes on the chart. Receipts still showed nearly 3 missing hours that night. A note warned, "Do not ask for names here." Another line read, "Reports now arrive 3 times weekly." One print showed faint returns circling the hollow edge. They folded into a triangle, then into a tight ring. A month later, Dustin drove the shortcut again after midnight. The air went still near the same mile stretch. Temperature dropped fast inside the cab. The engine died cleanly, without any struggle. 2 spheres appeared first, then 4 more. They formed a wide arc around the truck. Tall figures stepped from the dim glow quietly. More figures followed, lining the shoulder and median. They were thin, too tall, and perfectly balanced. Their heads were elongated and smooth. Their eyes were black and almond-shaped. Their skin looked pale gray with a matte, wet sheen. Long fingers flexed with narrow-jointed segments. They moved with smooth, efficient precision. One figure stood in the lane, centered in headlights. It raised a hand, and Dustin stopped breathing. The hum pressed into his ribs in steady pulses. Frost flowered again across the windshield in fractal geometry. Symbols formed within the frost, drawn by hovering fingertips. A voice entered his mind, cold and exact. "You are marked, you will remember." The figure stepped closer without footfalls. They surrounded the cab like a quiet ring. Dustin watched a finger point at his chest. Another finger pointed at his throat. Another finger pointed at his forehead. The spheres brightened once, then dimmed to a low glow. The dashboard clock froze, then jumped ahead in blocks. Dustin woke at a rest stop, shaking hard. 6 hours were missing from receipts and device logs. His cab smelled like ozone and cold metal. His tongue tasted like pennies for hours. The hum lingered behind his eyes all day. A quiet research circle found him through trucker channels. They asked for his receipts and dash logs. They shared reports and symptom lists in plain envelopes. They warned him to avoid mirrors after encounters. Many witnesses had headaches, tinnitus, and memory gaps afterward. Some had triangular scars in mirrored placement. Some heard tones in teeth for weeks. Some saw doubles in reflective glass. One man forgot his own address for days. During a 4th encounter, 6 spheres formed a ring over desert ground. The ring opened like an iris, without any sound. 5 or 6 entities appeared inside the opening. They stood taller than before, with longer arms. Their fingers fanned wider, counting invisible measures. A sequence of images hit Dustin without warning. He saw grids of roads and moving vehicles. He saw human faces fading into blank calm. He saw a boundary folding between places. The entities sent one clear concept into his mind. Time is ending, choice is required. The hum became a heavy pressure, then weightlessness. 2 days later, Dustin woke in a Las Vegas hospital. He remembered a beam and a falling sensation. Doctors found fine white dust in his clothes. His phone held black frames and broken time codes. After that, encounters stopped for 6 months. Then Nevada lost power statewide for 47 minutes. Darkness hit like a curtain across every ridge. The hum returned inside Dustin's teeth immediately. 2 white spheres appeared above his street, shadowless. Streetlights stayed dark, yet shadows moved across his driveway. A sphere hovered above the roofline, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Frost formed geometric petals on his windows, then vanished. The air smelled of ozone and wet stone. Tall figures stood between parked cars, perfectly still. A cold voice entered his mind, calm and final. The choice is now. His phone lit up, showing 10:52 p.m. again. The time display blinked, then froze on the same minute. A tall figure stood at the porch steps, facing inward. Its long fingers traced symbols in air above the railing. Those symbols glowed briefly, then sank into the wood grain. A second figure appeared behind it, matching his height exactly. Its face looked blank, yet familiar in the porch glass. Dustin tried to shout, but his voice stayed trapped. Neighbors later reported his porch light blinking without power. A door camera saved only black frames that night. Inside the cab, the hum rose until his vision shimmered. He later remembered weightlessness and a metallic taste. When power returned, Dustin was gone. His truck sat idling in the driveway, warm. The driver door hung open, swinging slowly. No footprints marked the dust outside. Only a thin line of white dust crossed porch boards. It ended at the door, then continued inside the cab. His steering wheel felt cold, despite the warm engine. The radio hissed a tone, then spoke his name once. His receipts folder lay on the seat, neatly stacked. The tone matched the hum from desert nights. His mailbox held a new envelope, sealed without glue. Inside was a single black frame printed on paper. It showed his porch, empty, with a sphere above. The last note inside read 47, then stopped. Dustin kept every receipt, gap, and black file in one box. After the blackout, that box was all that remained. No one proved he lived or died afterward. The number 47 stayed behind like a signature. If they can take a driver from his own porch, what does the choice actually mean for us? Comment your theory, then like and subscribe for the next case. Late Tuesday night in the West Texas oil fields, Dalton Ridgway pulled up to Pump 7, expecting nothing but the familiar chug of machinery and empty darkness. Then his electronics died, the air turned razor cold, and a perfect ring of blue-white lights appeared in total silence 50 feet away. 2 minutes later, it vanished, and Dalton realized he hadn't just seen something impossible, he had lost 9 minutes of his life. The story of Dalton Ridgway, a gritty, wary 42-year-old oil worker, unfolds in the deep, unyielding solitude of the West Texas oil fields. After 7 years navigating the endless black grid of Kalashi roads, Dalton was accustomed to the rhythmic, comforting chugging of the pump jacks. On a late Tuesday night, around 11:46 p.m., he arrived at Pump 7, killed his engine, and stepped into the profound, star-drenched darkness. That is when the anomaly appeared. 50 feet from the pump, suspended silently above a low, rusty metal giard, was a perfect ring of light. This was not scattered light. It was composed of 12 individual orbs of pale blue-white energy, arranged in a precise 20-foot diameter circle. They glowed with such controlled intensity that there was zero light spill, pure, contained energy that felt scientifically impossible. The physical effects were immediate and disorienting. A profound, unnatural cold enveloped him, sinking deeper than any West Texas winter. The air was thick with the sharp, acidic scent of ozone, the smell of a massive electrical discharge or superheated metal. Simultaneously, his electronics failed. His digital watch began to beep erratically, flashing meaningless sequences, and his phone, which moments before held a 60% charge, went completely dead. Dalton watched, frozen, as the 12 lights began a slow, synchronized, rhythmic rotation. After what Dalton estimated was just 2 minutes of paralyzed observation, the light vanished with a silent, absolute finality. When his colleague, Hector Moran, arrived at 11:56 p.m., Dalton was visibly shaken. The simple fact was undeniable. Despite his own internal clock and malfunctioning watch, which read 11:49 p.m., he had lost exactly 9 minutes of time. Furthermore, the rusty giard where the light had rested was now scorching hot to the touch, a sign of extreme, localized heat transfer. His supervisor dismissed it as St. Elmo's fire, but Dalton recognized the precision, the cold, and the blatant temporal distortion as evidence of a disciplined, purposeful presence. His exhaustion was instantly replaced by an unshakable obsession. He needed quantifiable proof. 3 weeks later, on another Tuesday night, Dalton was fully prepared. Alone at the remote Pump 12, his vehicle was outfitted with a charging pack for his phone, and his mind was tense with anticipation. At 1:09 a.m., the familiar, chilling cold descended, and the air crackled with a silent tension. This time, the formation was a perfect triangle of 3 larger, more intense blue-white lights, hovering 100 feet away. Shaking but steady, Dalton grabbed his phone and began to record, capturing 4 minutes and 17 seconds of the lights executing a complex, synchronized geometric pattern, a visual language. Suddenly, the triangle expanded, stretching its vertices outward to reveal the center, a massive, dark, physical craft. Its surface was non-reflective, appearing to absorb all ambient light, giving it a terrifying depth, like a perfect hole punched in the night sky. There were no visible rivets, seams, or conventional propulsion methods, a hallmark of true anomalous aerial vehicles, AAVs. As it descended slowly, a circular aperture opened in its underside, emitting a profound, visceral crimson light that pulsed, indicating a colossal, controlled energy source. Observing this light, Dalton experienced an acute cognitive jump, a jarring, instantaneous switch in consciousness. One moment, he was terrified and watching. The next, he was sitting back in his idling truck. The dash clock read 1:42 a.m. He had lost precisely 33 minutes of conscious awareness and memory. Scrambling out, he ran to the landing site. The metal giard was intensely hot. Below it, the ground was undeniable. The gravel had been swept away into a clean circle, and the soil beneath was vitrified, melted, fused, and cooled instantly into brittle, glassy earth. Clear evidence of plasma weapon or extreme heat dissipation used by an advanced technology. Dalton resolved to keep the video a secret, acquiring the specialized EMF detector and high-end camera with Hector's help to prepare for the inevitable third act. 5 weeks after the second encounter, Dalton was back at Pump 7, his EMF detector placed strategically on his truck hood. It didn't beep, it began to scream, a loud, piercing, insistent alarm signaling the anomaly's return. Hundreds of individual blue-white lights appeared, arranging themselves in a breathtaking, ever-shifting fractal pattern, before finally coalescing into a single, complex object resembling a floating building of light and shadow. This ultimate structure was entirely non-Euclidean. Its angles and geometry appeared to shift based on Dalton's perspective, consistent with descriptions of high-level, possibly interdimensional, craft. At this moment, Dalton's sensory and cognitive perception shifted. The veil lifted. He saw beyond the light to the pure energy driving it, understanding the geometry of the universe. He felt like a colorblind man suddenly granted the full electromagnetic spectrum. A single, telepathic question imploded in his consciousness. Why do you observe? With his entire will, his soul's deepest impulse, Dalton responded, I want to understand. The vast floating structure dissolved, the hundreds of lights condensing rapidly into a single perfect sphere of light hovering barely 10 feet from his face. The sphere acted as a conduit, expanding his mind and filling it with compressed knowledge, a massive, silent download. He perceived the entities not as biological creatures, but as conscious energy patterns, geometric arrays of existence. They revealed themselves as the archivists, whose purpose was to meticulously record everything, every star, every atom, every thought, in a cosmic battle against entropy, the universe's eventual decay. They chose Dalton because his motivation was pure understanding, not fear or conquest. The lost time was not abduction. It was the duration required for the compressed data, an equivalent of years of research to be fully written onto his consciousness. The sphere vanished, leaving Dalton kneeling in the dirt, overwhelmed not by terror, but by the shattering, overwhelming beauty of the cosmic truth. The encounter fundamentally altered Dalton Ridgway. He kept the video footage, using it as his anchor to the truth. For a man who spent his life navigating the plains, trusting only his own reality was the foundation he had left. This quality qualified him for a truth the world would reject. 2 years later, he quit the oil fields, enrolled in community college to study physics, and eventually earned his doctorate. He became Dr. Dalton Ridgway, an astrophysicist who dedicated his life to anomalous observations and unexplained phenomena. He never spoke publicly about his nights in West Texas, but his academic career was built upon the knowledge he acquired. He published dense, technical papers on electromagnetic anomalies and complex geometric patterns, works that hinted at the profound truths he held without ever stating them outright. He established himself at the edges of the map, where accepted science broke down. And every few years he would receive an email or a letter from someone else who had seen the lights, experienced lost time, or gained a strange, inexplicable certainty. Dr. Ridgway always responded, validating their experiences, knowing that the archivists were still out there, still recording. This is the heart of the story, the moment a simple oil worker stepped past the edge of normal reality and saw the mechanism behind it, the archivists quietly recording everything while the universe slowly decays. But here's what matters to us. If ordinary people like Dalton can be chosen, then what is it about your life, your attention, your curiosity, your need to understand that could make you a candidate too? And if any of this feels strangely familiar, don't scroll past. Drop a comment and keep it simple. Tell me where you are, what you experienced, whether your electronics failed like a battery drain or a signal drop, or your clock jumped, and what you felt in your body, cold, numbness, dizziness, ringing in your ears, anything. Every week, I'm going to pick the most specific reports, compare the overlaps, and start building a real hotspot map from the patterns. If you want to be part of the group that tracks the real signs, hit subscribe. Don't just watch, document. Imagine a job where silence isn't comforting, it's crushing, where the air feels so heavy it presses against your eardrums. You stand completely alone across endless miles of empty space, with nothing but the wind whining through metal cables and the faint cloud of your own breath hanging in the cold in front of your face. Today, we're stepping straight into the heart of that silence, into the hidden secrets of the Copper Ridge Resort. The Copper Ridge Resort, perched high in the Colorado Rockies at 11,000 feet, was a study in isolated cold. This was the domain of the graveyard shift, and for 6 years, Callum Rafferty, a 52-year-old lift operator with a reputation for routine, had been its sole guardian. It was February 16th. At 12:05 a.m., Callum secured himself into the maintenance cabin for his methodical 40-minute inspection round. His job was simple: check the cables, pylons, and the dozens of empty passenger cabins hanging motionless on the line. The silence was absolute, broken only by the auxiliary motor's hum and the metallic clack of the wheels. Up here, he felt closer to the blinding stars above than to the world below. Callum was approaching the third pylon, Pylon 3, when the rhythm broke. His headlamp swept across the suspended passenger cabins ahead. His eyes immediately locked onto a visual impossibility. Above cabin 18, a soft, brilliant, white-blue light was hovering, silent, stationary, and approximately 30 feet above the empty car. It was unlike any resort or aircraft system. The phenomenon was not singular. There were 3 more identical lights, one above cabin 22, another over cabin 25, and a 4th positioned precisely over cabin 29. 4 isolated passenger cabins, each marked by a silent sphere of energy. He pulled out his radio, his heart beginning a heavy thud. "Marcus, this is Callum. 4 distinct lights, high intensity, above the line near Pylon 3. Check thermal or CCTV." Marcus, the night security guard at the base, reported, "Negative, Callum. All feeds are green. Clear night." Callum's cabin was now nearly adjacent to cabin 18, the car. Inside the glass, a heavy, opaque layer of thick white frost covered the interior of the windows. Inside, it was an impossible anomaly. The cabin was sealed. This internal flash freeze defied logic. He sped up, moving to cabin 22. The light and the internal frost were identical. "Marcus, get Ava on the line. This is beyond thermal. The inside of these cabins, they're covered in frost, like a rapid internal flash freeze." Ava Riker, the head of security, confirmed Marcus's report. Nothing on the cameras. She suggested reflection or a trick of the light. Callum rejected it. "Ava, this is Pylon 3 at 11,000 feet. What is freezing the inside of the glass?" He reached Pylon 2 and looked back. His breath hitched in his throat. They were gone. The 4 white-blue lights were extinguished, vanished. The cabins themselves appeared perfectly normal. The bizarre internal frost had disappeared without a trace. The entire phenomenon had been wiped clean in the span of perhaps 90 seconds. "Ova," he radioed, his voice tight. "Scratch that. The lights are gone, and the cabins are clear. They just dissolved." Ava told him to finish his inspection and log the disturbance. Callum knew his eyes had not deceived him. The disturbance was real, even if the recording devices failed to capture it. Callum reached the summit station, his mind still reeling from the Pylon 3 event. He stepped out onto the steel deck, exposed to the raw mountain night, and saw the second, overwhelming anomaly. Floating 100 feet off the ground silently was an object of enormous size. It was long and cylindrical, perfectly cigar-shaped, at least 40 feet in length. It glowed with the same intense white-blue light as the spheres, but this light was subdued, a deep, self-contained pulse that seemed to absorb sound. The wind was completely dead. The quiet was absolute, a pressure vacuum that made his ears pop. Callum stood frozen, feeling an overriding sense of absolute, clinical inspection. The massive, silent craft simply hovered, dominating the atmosphere. He knew he was being studied, observed, and categorized, a single insect beneath a microscope. Then, with an impossible acceleration that defied physics, the cigar-shaped object did not move so much as it vanished. It became a single, brief streak of white-blue light, an arc of energy that shot vertically into the star-packed sky and was gone. Shaking, Callum radioed Ava and began the descent. He checked the time, 1:12 a.m. The ride should have taken 40 minutes. Halfway down, the magnitude of the event struck him. Every single passenger cabin, all 42 of them, were now uniformly covered in the same thick internal frost he had seen earlier. A silent, frozen fleet gliding down the mountain. He radioed Marcus. "You need to be at the base station. All 42 cabins are frosted inside." He accelerated the cabin, needing to get off the mountain. He pulled into the dock at 1:47 a.m. Marcus was waiting. "Callum, what took you so long? You were due back at 1:12 a.m. The system logged a downtime anomaly of 35 minutes. Callum stared, bewildered. The motor log confirmed it, stationary from 1:12 a.m. to 1:47 a.m. 35 minutes had vanished from his life. He pointed to the approaching cabins. "Marcus, look at the frost inside." Marcus squinted. "They're empty. Call. Just normal frost on the outside." Callum turned back to the closest car. The thick, impossible internal frost that had covered the entire fleet moments ago was gone. The slate was wiped clean. Callum was the only witness. In those 35 missing minutes, the watchers had sampled every passenger cabin, collecting a massive atmospheric sample, and meticulously erased all evidence just before his arrival. Callum and Ava Riker eventually shared their combined data. Ava, deeply disturbed by the systematic failure of the CCTV and the inexplicable time loss, had a rare moment of professional vulnerability, admitting that something outside the known resort operations had occurred. She privately noted a brief, unexplained white-blue flash in one of the high-altitude cameras, too quick and too distorted to classify, but enough to unsettle her. A week later, the encounter escalated. Callum was again on the gondola when the cabin motor abruptly failed, a non-standard malfunction. Then the cabin felt a distinct, powerful shift. It was lifted clean off the gondola cable by an unseen force. Panic finally set in. He watched the mountain drop away beneath him as his cabin was gently transported toward the summit. Then the world dissolved into a bright light, and when his vision cleared, he was no longer in the cabin. He was inside a vast, silent structure, the cigar-shaped craft he had seen, perhaps, or a chamber within it. The chamber was lit by the same gentle white-blue pulse. In the center of the room stood an entity. It was about 5 feet tall, with smooth, pale gray-white skin and a disproportionately large head. Its eyes were massive, black and almond-shaped, utterly devoid of any recognizable emotion, yet communicating a sense of profound age and intelligence. This was not a monster. It was a pure intellect. The entity raised a 3-fingered hand and touched Callum's temple. Instantly, knowledge flooded his mind, a rapid, non-verbal stream of pure understanding. He realized the 4 lights were observation drones for rapid molecular sampling. The internal frost was the collection mechanism, freezing trace data from every single human who had ridden the lift that day. This was a massive population sample, gathered and meticulously wiped clean during the 35 minutes of lost time. The beings were watchers, observers, and students of humanity, patiently observing a species evolving. Most profoundly, he grasped nonlinear time perception. The missing time wasn't stolen. His consciousness had momentarily slipped free of human linear reality. For the watchers, time was fluid, elastic, and abundant. He was returned to his cabin with a silent jolt, leaving him only with a small, circular scar on his forearm, the physical cost of seeing. Callum Rafferty and Ava Riker were changed. They knew the mountains of Colorado were a vast, high-altitude laboratory, and they had been observed. They learned to live with the truth. The Watchers are ancient, patient, and exist in a state of non-linear time, simply observing a species on the cusp of evolution. The truth is more unsettling than simple abduction. The mountains are watching, and humanity is being patiently observed, learning to swim through time instead of drown in it. Pay attention to your clocks. Notice when your moments feel elastic. These are signs that your consciousness is transitioning. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive into the unexplained. Leave a comment below, What is your theory on nonlinear time? And where are you watching from tonight? Let's discuss. If you've ever been alone in the woods and suddenly realized it's too quiet, this story will crawl under your skin, because sometimes that silence means you've just stepped into someone else's laboratory. Hikers go missing from remote American trails every year, but the man in tonight's story came back, and what was done to him suggests something out there isn't hunting us at all. It's harvesting us. The worst night of Yuan Thorne's life began on a wet, suffocating trail outside Duluth in 2012. At 28, he wasn't running from a killer or a debt collector, just from the slow, dull collapse of his own life, in a beat-up 2002 Subaru that barely loved him back. He thought an overnight hike near a place locals called Danger Castle would clear his head. Instead, it made him visible to something that doesn't see humans as people at all. He had been hiking for just under an hour when he stopped dead on the trail. Yuan initially thought it was a human corpse, but it was a deer, mutilated and splayed across the trail in a way that defied natural explanation. Its neck was twisted so far back it nearly touched the spine. The chest cavity had been hollowed out with surgical precision, and both hind legs were completely missing, severed without a trace. But the most unsettling detail wasn't the carnage. It was the chilling efficiency of it. There was virtually no blood on the forest floor, just the macabre carcass and a sharp, metallic tang in the air, a scent Yuan associated with an old industrial freezer. "This ain't good at all," he whispered, the sound swallowed immediately by the sudden, absolute silence. The woods had gone instantly, unnaturally quiet. No birdsong, no cricket chirps, not even the faint rustle of leaves in the non-existent wind. Yuan's heart hammered against his ribs. He snapped a few quick photos with his phone, his hands shaking, recognizing instinctively that he was no longer in a hiking story, but something infinitely worse. His brain screamed in a terrifying loop. You're walking into a Dateline episode, and you're the victim. That's when the pressure hit, a deep, subaudible resonance, a hum that seemed to bypass his ears entirely, vibrating the very bones in his skull like a colossal, overloaded transformer. It wasn't localized, it was everywhere and nowhere at once, an invisible force that made his stomach churn. Then the light came. It wasn't a beam or a flash, but a pervasive, pale green dome that pulsed faintly, enveloping the trees and turning the forest into a grotesque, skeletal landscape. The air crackled with intense static, and the hair on his arms stood straight up. His phone screen died instantaneously, a useless slab of dead plastic. He slowly turned in a full circle, the hum making him dizzy, and then he saw them. 3 figures standing just on the edge of the pulsating light. They were easily over 7 feet tall, impossibly lean, with limbs so long they defied basic anatomy. Their bodies were covered in a reflective, dark gray suit that looked organic yet metallic. Their heads were smooth and featureless, ovoid, with no discernible mouths or noses, just 2 enormous, deep black eyes that seemed to absorb all available light. They didn't walk, they slipped and glided across the forest floor, their joints bending in impossible ways, making them resemble immense, animated question marks. "Hello? Is someone there? Do you need help?" Yuan croaked, the words tasting pathetic. They offered no verbal response. One of them raised a disturbingly long arm,
I just
the
want
fingers tipped
to
with
know
shining
why
black
you're here.
instruments, and pointed directly at his chest. The gesture was a silent, absolute command. That was the instant he felt it, a searing, penetrating heat in his sternum, as if a white-hot branding iron was being pressed directly against his soul. His legs instantly buckled, and he collapsed, gasping for air as the pain locked his diaphragm. Before he could scream again, he was lifted, not by hands or ropes, but by something invisible, a crushing electromagnetic force that wrapped around him like thousands of tightening, non-existent strands. He couldn't twitch, he couldn't even weep. The forest below him blurred, then vanished. He awoke to find himself rigidly pinned to a metal slab that was leaching the warmth from his body. He was in a circular, cavernous room with no discernible walls, only a continuous, luminous silver surface reflecting a soft, blinding white light. The ceiling was a maze of shifting, complex geometric lights that made him intensely nauseous. His head throbbed, and his mouth tasted sharply of acrid copper. The air was colder and more sterile than any hospital he'd ever smelled. Two of the beings were positioned near his feet, operating sleek, humming consoles, while the third stood over him, its featureless head tilted in an attitude of profound clinical study. "Where am I?" Yuan rasped, the sound a feeble echo. The being did not speak with its mouth. Instead, the vibration, now amplified and targeted, filled his skull. His mind was instantly flooded with a sensation, less like hearing words and more like a massive, incomprehensible block of data being forcefully downloaded into his consciousness, with only the core meaning translating: "You are not harmed. Do not resist. Your pain threshold is irrelevant to the objective." "Objective? You practically grilled my ribs." Yuan shot back, the sarcasm an instinctive defense. The figure tilted its head further, its black eyes unwavering. "Pain is subjective. Your physiological response indicates optimal stress levels for data acquisition." "Yeah, mine is not up for debate. What do you want? Why me?" The lights above shifted, bathing the room in a deep, unsettling violet. "You are accessible. Your location is remote. Your designation, unremarkable." The creature stepped aside. The second figure, standing near a console, approached, holding a sleek, oval device, a frightening blend of technology and the organic, pulsating with internal light. It held the device over Yuan's chest, and an intricate, rapidly shifting pattern of ultraviolet and infrared light scanned his torso. He felt a deep, tickling sensation in his lungs and kidneys as the machine analyzed him. Analysis complete. No structural anomalies. "Data acquisition successful," the first one spoke. "Your kind is a volatile, heavy resource. We observe. We must adapt." "Adapt? Why? Are you planning to invade?" The being's vibrational reply intensified, becoming harsher, colder. "Not invasion. Resource extraction. You deplete this planet at an unsustainable rate. We require maintenance, sustain." Yuan's attempts at further communication were suddenly and violently cut short. The metal slab beneath him began to lose its rigidity, becoming tacky and viscous, pulling him down like quicksand made of mercury and oil. He screamed, but a deafening return of the low, pervasive hum instantly devoured the sound. His vision warped as the figures became stretched, elongated shadows. He opened his eyes again, choking, back on the cold, damp forest floor. The pale green dome of light was gone, replaced by the faint, miserable light of pre-dawn. His chest still burned with residual pain, and his phone rebooted, instantly flashing dozens of notifications, a mocking return to trivial reality. He stumbled, adrenaline-soaked, back towards the trailhead. Near his car, he found the two other bodies, a man and a woman who had simply been hiking. Their torsos were slumped, their skin unblemished, but internally they were crushed, as if the pressure that had held Yuan had simply imploded their vital organs. The metallic tang in the air returned, sickening him. Yuan called 911, stammering an incomplete, incoherent story about hikers being attacked by something. The police found the bodies, the strange scorch marks on the ground, and the bizarre fact that the victims' internal organs had been liquefied without a single external wound. They dismissed Yuan as a traumatized witness, perhaps a suspect. Yuan Thorne doesn't hike anymore. He sold the Subaru. Sometimes, late at night, he still hears that low, vibrating hum, and he feels the phantom pressure in his sternum. He knows they are still out there, watching, waiting for the next unremarkable specimen to wander into their path. The incident experienced by Yuan Thorne is more than just an abduction. It is a chilling lesson in the insignificance of the individual to a superior force. The cold, clinical messages resource and unremarkable drive home a terrifying truth. To these entities, humanity is not a target for conquest, but an object for resource extraction. The precise and brutal elimination of the deer and the two innocent hikers points to a cold, systematic strategy. They take what they need, and whatever remains is discarded as waste. It makes one shudder to think how many quiet disappearances on secluded trails are, in fact, similar harvesting trips. If you find this story unsettling, or if you have ever heard that strange, deep hum or felt inexplicable pressure, we urge you to share your experiences. Like this post to support our work in uncovering these truths. Comment below with your theories. What are these entities, and what kind of resource are they truly seeking? Share this story to spread Yuan Thorne's chilling message. Your engagement is what keeps the search for the unknown alive. Forget everything you know about gravity and time. Deep beneath Kentucky's Mammoth Cave lies a permanent, fundamental tear in the fabric of space-time. SCP-1351, the Mobius Cave. This is where reality unravels. Today, we break down the Foundation's sealed files to explore the forbidden events and terrifying scientific hypotheses suggesting this cave is not mere geology, but a cosmic warning. To understand the horror of SCP-1351, you must first understand the context. The SCP Foundation operates on a simple mandate: secure, contain, protect. Their enemy is the anomalous, the things that violate consensus reality. SCP-1351 is classified as Euclid. This means its behavior is unpredictable, its capabilities are immense, and its containment requires constant vigilance. Its location is ironic, hidden in plain sight within the Mammoth Cave National Park. While thousands of tourists explore the safe, beautiful caverns, only a few hundred meters away, under the guise of the SEHER Bat Preserve, lies the true horror. Discovered in 1995 by speleologists mapping potential connections to the main park system, initial expeditions immediately yielded results that shattered all known geological and physical models. The entrance itself is the first clue. A strange, almost perfectly circular hole in the ceiling of an underground chamber, 125 meters below the surface, a path that demands a descent upward to begin. The three expedition teams between 1995 and 2002 established one undeniable truth. The warp tunnels within 1351 operate entirely outside Newtonian physics. It's reported that the gravity you experience is entirely dependent on the angle of the floor, and the floor itself can twist and loop, reassuming positions parallel to its original location, a geometric nightmare that creates its own internal gravitational field. Inside 1351, time moves on its own terms. A researcher entering for what they perceive as 20 minutes may emerge to find that 3 hours have passed in the outside world. This temporal distortion is not linear. It is random, volatile, and inexplicable. The combination of unpredictable gravity, self-looping geometry, and shattered time defines 1351, transforming a mere cave into a weapon of abstract terror. How does the Foundation contain such a fundamental break in reality? With a perimeter fence, unauthorized vehicle warnings, and a security team dressed as park rangers and civilian speleologists, a thin veil of normalcy draped over the edge of the abyss. This is the stage. Now let's look at the events the Foundation keeps deliberately classified. The Foundation's top minds have developed three primary, terrifying hypotheses to explain the geometry and power of the Mobius Cave. These are not just scientific theories, they are philosophical nightmares. Hypothesis Alpha: the Mobius strip and the wormhole torsion is the simplest, most elegant, and arguably the most frightening explanation. The Mobius Cave is the embodiment of a mathematical construct made real. A Mobius strip is a two-dimensional object that, when twisted, becomes one-sided. In the case of 1351, this is happening in 3 dimensions. The cave is a permanent, self-looping wormhole. The tunnels aren't physically linked, they are topologically connected. When you enter, you are traveling along a single continuous surface that lacks a defined inside or outside, up or down. The shifting gravity is merely the effect of the traveler constantly switching which side of the dimensional surface they are occupying. This implies that the cave is a flaw in reality itself, a geological impossibility that has been made physically manifest. The victims like Laska and Dunbar were not killed by a creature or a trap, but by the pure, unyielding logic of a flawed mathematical equation that their 3-dimensional bodies could not solve. It suggests that the laws of physics we hold so dear are merely superficial rules that can be broken by extreme geometry. Hypothesis Beta: the 4D extraterrestrial transit station introduces a more chilling cosmic element. What if the cave isn't naturally occurring? What if it's the remnant of something artificial? This theory proposes that SCP-1351 is not a cave, but the 3-dimensional shadow of a structure existing in the 4th spatial dimension, a dimension we can only perceive as constantly shifting geometry. The inexplicable, unpredictable gravity changes are not errors in the cave, but the rules of the 4th dimension being imposed upon our reality. The weight shifts, the twists, the loops, these are merely the up, down, and sideways of a four-dimensional object that is constantly moving relative to our three-dimensional plane. This leads directly to the idea of the cave as an extraterrestrial transit station. If an advanced alien civilization could perceive and manipulate the fourth dimension, they could use 1351 as a natural, pre-existing gateway, a cosmic subway stop, allowing for instantaneous travel across unimaginable distances. The temporal anomalies would be a byproduct of their faster-than-light travel methods leaking into our timeline. The cave isn't a destination, it's the loading ramp for interstellar voyages. The final hypothesis Gamma, the stain and the alien contamination most insidious theory, casts 1351 as a scar on reality. This hypothesis suggests that a massive dimension-hopping entity or a cosmic vessel once passed through this exact point in Kentucky. The sheer energy or biological force required to breach our reality left an energetic stain, a permanent zone of contamination. The physical warping, the flattening of D8334, and the time dilation are all residual effects, like radiation sickness of the universe. The entity is long gone, but its passing has permanently thinned the barrier between our world and the voids it traverses. The Moebius Cave is simply the place where the wound never healed, proving that the borders of our reality are far more fragile than we dare to admit. To fully grasp the unique terror of SCP-1351, we must place it next to one of the most psychologically devastating spatial anomalies in Foundation history, SCP-3001, the Red Reality. Comparing these two nightmares illuminates the different ways reality can break. SCP-1351 is a geometric nightmare, a space-time torsion. It twists physical rock into a mathematically impossible loop. The horror is that the material world is present, but the rules of engagement are wrong. Conversely, SCP-3001 is a hole in everything, an extra-dimensional void utterly devoid of light and gravity. The horror of 3001 is the absence of everything. In 1351, the horror is physical and immediate. Death comes from the mechanical violence of space-time, where victims are crushed and geometrically reduced. It is the ultimate body horror. In 3001, the horror is psychological and protracted. Dr. Anderson was suspended in an agonizing limbo of isolation, facing existential decay. It is the ultimate psychological horror. The classification irony persists. SCP-3001 is safe because its void is static and predictable. SCP-1351 remains Euclid because its internal mechanics, the gravity shifts and random geometry, are volatile, unpredictable, and potentially contagious. Both manipulate time, but 1351 causes chaotic shifts, 20 minutes in, hours later out, inflicting the trauma of lost continuity. 3001 causes extreme, consistent dilation, minutes feel like years, inflicting the trauma of suffering's endless extension. We return to the Moebius Cave. Whether it's a natural wormhole or an alien dock, its implications are profound. The fragility of our reality. SCP-1351 proves that our stable, three-dimensional world can be shattered by a single geometric twist, a cosmic ripple. The ultimate horror is the fate of D8334, the paper person. This cave demonstrates the potential for dimensional collapse, the annihilation of a human being from 3 dimensions to 2. This permanent open wound, this scar on space-time, is not healing. The Foundation fights a geological anomaly that behaves like a sentient mathematical construct, daring scientists to find the error in its logic. The Moebius Cave is a cosmic riddle that asks, is our reality the intended design, or merely a temporary structure waiting to be folded, twisted, and collapsed by the true, abstract geometry of the universe? The Foundation guards the entrance, but they cannot guard the idea. The idea that time can betray you, and that the ground beneath your feet could be a single, continuous, terrifying surface leading nowhere you recognize. What do you think is hiding inside the Moebius Cave? Is it an alien dock, or a wound that will eventually bleed into our world? Let us know your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more explorations into the classified files of the SCP Foundation. Until next time, stay safe. Welcome to the Deep Archives. For decades, the public narrative of alien encounters has been dominated by the Gray entity, small, frail, and clinical. But what happens when the Greys are simply the staff, and the true power rests with a commanding presence operating from a hidden royal court. This is the story of Filiberto Cardenas, a Cuban immigrant in Miami, 1979, whose experience didn't just document an abduction, it exposed a rigid, terrifying hierarchy operating beneath our world. The late 1970s in South Florida were volatile, a blend of Cold War paranoia and a cultural explosion of the burgeoning UFO phenomenon. Cardenas's case, however, transcended the sensationalism of the era. It became a cornerstone of ufology due to an unprecedented combination of evidence: multiple external eyewitnesses to the event, 108 quantifiable physical marks left on the victim's body, and the subsequent, highly consistent testimony under repeated hypnotic regression. This wasn't hearsay. This was an investigation with tangible evidence, classified as a close encounter of the fourth kind, CE4K. Tonight, we detail the evidence that proves the existence of the chief. The date was late January 1979. Filiberto Cardenas was driving with 3 friends on a remote road outside Hialeah near the Everglades. The atmosphere was calm until 1:45 a.m. when, without warning, the vehicle died instantly. This classic electromagnetic effect, EMF signature, where an advanced energy source neutralizes ground-based electronics, was the first red flag. Their quartz wristwatch, a simple timing device, also ceased function simultaneously, a deliberate surgical act of isolation. As panic set in, a massive, silent, disc-shaped craft descended slowly nearby. Its sheer size was immense, casting a disproportionately eerie glow on the secluded garden where the car was immobilized. According to the friends, Cardenas, standing outside the car, was struck by an unseen, powerful force field. He was rendered instantly catatonic and paralyzed, a physiological shutdown preventing resistance. Before the horrified eyes of his 3 companions, Filiberto was levitated, slowly and silently lifted, into the belly of the immense, hovering ship. The 3 friends, terrified and unable to start the car, fled the scene on foot. Their subsequent consistent testimony became a critical initial piece of corroboration for investigators. Crucially, this event was not isolated. Reports later verified that air traffic control, ATC personnel at a nearby airport detected an unidentified flying object exhibiting extreme velocity and unusual maneuvers in the vicinity at the exact time Cardenas vanished. This official, multiple-source confirmation elevated the Cardenas case from a simple abduction claim to a documented investigation supported by external observational data. Inside the craft, the terrifying medical procedure began. Filiberto recalled being in a large, cold, brightly lit room staffed by the classic gray entities. They were short, approximately 4 feet tall, with large black, almond-shaped eyes and smooth, grayish skin. He described them as emotionless technicians, utilizing strange small tools to perform a comprehensive, intrusive physical examination. The most damning and unique piece of physical evidence was what Cardenas carried back: 108 small, perfectly circular marks etched across his body. These were documented by investigators, notably on his upper chest, back, and limbs. These were not scars. They were fresh, meticulously placed pinpoint punctures or microburns. The exact count, 108, is highly suggestive of a calculated, methodical process, potentially a diagnostic tally, biosampling array, or, most chillingly, the installation points for an advanced neuromonitoring device. Cardenas returned bearing a quantified physical receipt of the encounter, separating his account from almost every other abduction narrative in history. The medical examination was only the preliminary step. Cardenas was next transported to a massive, complex facility. He described being moved to a cavernous area, an immense underground or undersea base, a highly technological chamber that felt like an artificial cave or deep-sea habitat. This detail immediately links the Cardenas file to theories of non-interplanetary but subterranean or hollow Earth operations. Here, he encountered the entity that revealed the true structure of the operation: the Chief. This being was dramatically different from the Greys, tall, standing between 6 and 7 feet, majestic and uniquely intimidating. He wore a long, flowing, dark yellow or gold cape and sat upon a large, ornate throne. He was the master, the obvious figure of authority in this terrifying royal court. The biggest revelation was the communication. The chief spoke not only telepathically but verbally, in perfect, flowing Spanish. This suggests either an ancient integration into human culture or the ability to instantaneously synthesize complex language, a profound technological capability that eliminates the need for telepathic ambiguity. The chief delivered a solemn and direct warning. Humanity was on a definitive path to self-destruction, primarily through environmental ruin and endless warfare. He stated that the alien program was a genetic preservation effort. They were meticulously collecting and studying human samples to ensure the continuation of the species should Earth fail to sustain itself. This confirmed Cardenas's terrifying realization. His abduction was part of a planetary-scale intervention, not a random scouting mission. Before Cardenas was returned, the chief presented him with a concrete piece of evidence, a small, heavy metallic ring inscribed with alien symbols. The object became the most coveted piece of hard evidence. Investigators attempted to analyze the material, looking for isotopic anomalies or unidentifiable elements. While laboratory results were often inconclusive, a common outcome for alleged alien artifacts, the unique, non-terrestrial symbols inscribed upon it cemented its role as the chief's definitive, physical stamp on the encounter. It wasn't just a gift, it was a psychological anchor, a constant reminder of his ownership and the secrets he carried. The ordeal continued. Weeks after his return, Filiberto received a powerful telepathic summons. They wanted him back, and this time he was instructed to bring his wife, Margarita Cardenas. The second abduction, which included Margarita, provided the final, powerful piece of corroboration. The investigation was led by respected ufologist Virgilio Sanchez Osejo. Recognizing the limitations of conscious recall in traumatic events, both Filiberto and Margarita underwent multiple separate sessions of hypnotic regression with different specialists. The results were astonishing. Under deep hypnosis, both Filiberto and Margarita recounted their experiences: the paralysis, the graze, the chief, the subterranean base, and the medical procedures, with unwavering consistency across all sessions and all practitioners. This includes the consistent description of the chief's appearance, the golden throne, and the purpose of the genetic program. While skeptics often cite regression therapy as prone to confabulation, creating false memories through suggestion, the dense, complex, and harmonious overlap of details between the two independent witnesses convinced many professional researchers that they were dealing with genuine, suppressed memories of a shared, traumatic reality. The Cardenas file is a masterclass in organized terror. It forces a fundamental shift in ufology. The small, silent grays are merely the technicians and the workforce. The true command rests with the tall, regal chief on the golden throne, an entity with the authority to grant physical evidence and deliver planetary mandates. This implies a chilling multi-species hierarchy, where the Greys serve as the expendable pawns in a far grander scheme of information gathering and genetic intervention. The most disturbing implication is the subterranean agenda. If the chief is operating not from a distant galaxy like Zeta Reticuli, but from a vast, high-tech network beneath the Florida Straits, then the threat is not millions of light years away. It is integrated into the very fabric of our planet. This supports the terrifying hypothesis that these entities are not casual space visitors, but ancient Earth inhabitants, or highly integrated operatives who have been here hidden all along. The convergence of evidence, the 108 physical marks, the unusual metallic ring, and the consistent testimonies, is not merely proof of an encounter. It is a signature of alien ownership. The Cardenas family was branded and monitored. Their legacy is a reminder that the phenomenon of alien abduction is not just about lights in the sky. It's about a methodical, intelligent, and ongoing interaction with humanity, dictated by the powerful masters on the hidden thrones. What do you believe the 108 marks represent? Was it a biological diagnostic receipt, or a piece of tracking technology installed by the chief? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and tell us which level of the alien hierarchy you fear the most. Every year the ice melts a little deeper, and with each lost layer, the thing buried beneath has one less secret left to hide behind. Dr. Lena Rostova stood over her Antarctic drill rig, driven by a singular, desperate obsession. Dismissed by academia, she believed the satellite imagery of the monstrous 600-meter Dekhterev hull, a metallic geometric anomaly scorned by science, was real. Accelerated melt had finally exposed the truth. After days of brutal labor, the drill struck an alloy of absurd density. The violent vibration confirmed it. Beneath the ice lay the Degtyarev hull, an immense, perfectly preserved non-terrestrial shell, dormant for millennia. Moments after the confirmation, Lena's team discovered the Warring Anchor, a flat, triangular plate pulsating with a faint, internal glow, half submerged in the meltwater. Before they could secure the artifact, V-22 Osprey aircraft descended, instantly seizing the site. Colonel Victor Kane, of the Military Intelligence Command, confiscates the anchor. Kane explained his presence. His covert unit, Project Polaris, had been monitoring the proliferation of dandelion probes biomimicking seeds radiating from the quadrant, whose increased activity signaled a critical, escalating threat. Recognizing Lena's expertise with the anchor's data structure, Kane forced her collaboration, used the anchor to breach the Degtyarev hull. Under Kane's armed guard, Lena used the Warring Anchor as an electronic key. A massive section of the hull silently peeled back, revealing a ramp into a cavernous, non-Euclidean interior of crystalline and living metal structures. Lena was drawn to a central, luminous interface. The instant she made contact, the Degtyarev hull reacted. An invisible neutrino-form data pulse shot from the arc into the cosmos. At the command center, the alert went red. The Lobe object, a distant interstellar body, had abruptly changed its trajectory and was accelerating toward Earth. Lena's desperate gamble had violently succeeded. She had sent a signal, and the deep black had answered. The military established a temporary base inside the vast Degtyarev hull. Lena, now a captive resource, was consumed by guilt over the signal she sent. Decoding the ship's archives revealed the horrifying truth. The hull was not a warship, but an ark, a self-sustaining repository of genetic libraries and cultural memory from a vanished civilization. Crucially, Lena uncovered the foundational protocol, the warning of contagion. This was a desperate instruction. Do not engage this technology, or it will turn you into the very threat we escaped. Lena realized her activation pulse was a final, automatic warning that the forbidden technology had been breached, not an invitation. The revelation fueled the conflict with Colonel Kane. Kane, recognizing the technological leap the hull represented, dismissed Lena's ethical and historical findings. Contagion or not, Kane snapped, this is strategic parity. We will not be livestock observed by an advanced civilization. Find me the power source. We weaponize this ark before its owners get here. Lena, playing the role of the obedient technician, covertly sabotaged the data extraction, deliberately burying weapon schematics under layers of cultural archives and introducing subtle bugs into the military system to slow down their acquisition of critical defense blueprints. The hull itself began to violently resist its human occupants. Its awakened systems generated immense thermal output, fracturing the surrounding ice in unnatural, geometric patterns. Massive subterranean rivers formed, destabilizing the base and cutting off all viable escape routes as the Antarctic environment turned hostile. The pressure from Kane was unrelenting. Skip the gen pools, Doctor. Give me the engine configuration. We need FTL data now, or we drown in the collapse you started. Lena maintained her facade, but her internal dread intensified. Then came the ultimate reversal, the decoded reply from the Lobe object. It wasn't a communication, it was a cold, mathematical edict. The message was explicit, a destruction edict. The approaching entity was not the savior of the creators. It was the final, ruthless enforcer, the cleaner, determined to eradicate all traces of the ancient civilization and its dangerous technology. Earth, the Ark's temporary resting place, was simply collateral damage. Following the destruction edict, the Lobe object launched its final asset, the Clean Slate, a specialized cleanup vessel designed solely to erase. The ship descended, ignoring all human radio calls. Kane's paranoia exploded into action. He ordered high-explosive charges set in every critical junction of the hull. If we can't have it, no one will. Scorched earth. The hull's alloy was immensely resilient. The human explosives failed to inflict any critical structural damage. Outside, the natural collapse accelerated by the hull's internal heat reached its climax. The massive ice shelf fractured along ancient fault lines. With a thunderous planetary shriek, the Degtyarev hull was finally birthed from its icy tomb, revealing its full, colossal, terrifying scale above the ground. It was an unmistakable, defiant target, perfectly exposed for the clean slate, which was now less than minutes away from landing. The clean slate descended with frightening, almost silent precision, ignoring the remaining, scrambling military personnel. It immediately deployed specialized arms fitted with high-frequency energy drills, which penetrated the hull's shell effortlessly. The systematic, brutal sterilization began. Data archives vaporized, core systems dissolved at the structural level. Kane, driven mad by failure, initiated a final, desperate override on a secondary, non-essential power junction his team had installed, hoping to create a chain reaction. The small, localized explosion successfully ripped apart a nearby access ramp but failed to damage the hull. Kane, caught in the backwash of the blast, was thrown across the wet metal deck and fell into the black, freezing water, vanishing without a trace. The base was annihilated, the military team obliterated. Lena was utterly alone, trapped near the Arc Core massive, violently pulsating energy nexus. The sterilization beams of the clean slate had cut off her only remaining escape route. The data was gone, the team was dead, and her curiosity had signed the death warrant of humanity. In the suffocating din of the clean slate's energy drills and the shriek of collapsing metal, Lena clung to her last, most complex piece of data, the source code of the wearing anchor. She realized the code was never meant for physical access. It contained an encoded directive, a galactic safety rule, the interdiction command. This was a systemic law designed to categorize structures as protected assets. Any compatible technology, like the clean slate or the lobe object, was legally obligated to comply or risk being classified as a higher-level, self-violating threat. As the clean slate's primary drill hovered over the Arc Core, Lena saw the momentary flicker of doubt in the drone's programming, a half-second delay as it attempted to reconcile the ancient law with the new destruction edict. This was her infinitesimal window. Her desperate plan: rewrite the anchor's code to override the edict and implant the interdiction command at the highest priority level into the Arc Core, forcing the clean slate to switch targets from the hull to the lobe object itself. Lena fought her way through the convulsing, compromised corridors, avoiding the energy pulses of the few clean slate sub-drones that had temporarily frozen due to the conflicting internal logic. She reached the Arc Core, a swirling vortex of crystalline energy. With absolute focus and a racing pulse, she jammed the modified Warring Anchor chip into the central nexus. The Arc Core flared, bathing the hull in a blinding, rainbow spectrum light. The interdiction command was successfully injected, propagating through the structure like a rapid-fire legal writ. Outside, the clean slate stopped mid-drill. Its aggressive red lights instantly shifted to a cold, analytical white. Its primary directive was overwritten. It categorized the Dektiarev hull as a protected asset. Its logic matrix calculated the source of the violation. The lobe object, which had transmitted the destruction edict, was now the primary threat, a violation of its own laws. The clean slate immediately reconfigured. It fired a single, devastating, ultra-high-frequency data pulse electromagnetic burst directly into space, aimed at the retreating lobe object. The signal was a galactic scarlet letter, designating the area near Earth a high-value kill zone for any of the lobe fleet. Minutes later, the remaining, struggling human monitors confirmed the victory. The lobe object registered the severe threat signature and executed an emergency superluminal jump, vanishing instantly from the solar system. Earth was saved, not by defiance, but by bureaucracy. The world got a sanitized geothermal accident story. The wreckage and the inert clean slate vanished into a classified bunker, and Lena Rostova vanished with them, becoming the sole trusted technical consultant for the hyper-secret agency. In the final, quiet moments, Lena monitors the systems. The clean slate, now in a passive, protective state, is subtly deploying its trademark dandelion probes into Earth's atmosphere and oceans. These are not seeds of destruction, but monitoring and defensive units. Lena, having modified the system, ensures they constantly broadcast the interdiction command across the solar system, weaving an invisible, high-priority shield around Earth. Lena is no longer a disgraced physicist, but the planet's clandestine gatekeeper. She has protected a world that remains blissfully ignorant of its salvation, bound forever to the silent, alien system she controls. The threat of the lobe object is deferred, but the vigil has only just begun. Did the story of Lena Rostova and the Dektyarov ship give you goosebumps? Comment below what you would do if you were Lena. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exciting sci-fi mysteries.